my name's Chip Dodd. Mark Montague's coming up here. We're here with Peter Gazzie, who has been biking for what, like 6.5 years, 7 years, over 60,000 miles or 10,000 kilometers.
We calculated this morning, it's 110,000 kilometers.
Wow.
68,000.
350 miles.
Wow, amazing. So I guess, long story short, Mark and I were competing in the Florida Sea-to-Sea adventure race all the way across Florida. And right around the middle of the race, right, we crossed paths with Peter, and I was racing, and so I saw him. I was like, wow, I wish I could stop and talk, but we blew right by. Mark is better at stopping and smelling the flowers, and so
slower.
Yeah, and so luckily stopped and was able to meet Peter, and now you've made it up here from Florida.
Yeah.
What is this? Almost 2 months later.
2 months later.
Right, and so we're here at the SSBA training room, and Peter's going to give us a live kind of a little bit of a talk and a Q&A and share his story. So without further ado, I'm going to go back behind the tech. Thank you, guys.
Fantastic.
So we've been communicating a little bit via the internet after the race itself, and as it turned out, I said, if you're ever coming up this direction, hey, you need to come to Virginia. We got some beautiful country to come bike around in, especially about some mountains, and you told me that you got a little bit worried about mountains after being in flat Florida. Next thing I know, he says, oh, I'm already in Camp Lejeune, and I'll be there next week. So quickly we put everything together, and we're able to host you here for the last few days. He's been able to get a chance to actually get off his legs and get into a real bed for a couple of nights, and I'm sure get some rest and relaxation they really needed. Last couple of days, we've actually been in a local bike shop, Scat Bike Shop, who's been helpful in allowing us to completely rebuild his bike, Peter's bike, so that he'll be ready to get on to his next set of adventures. So with that ado, Peter Gazzie, tell us about some of your trips.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Thank you, Chip. On this trip and basically where I've been, and then I'm open to questions, and hopefully I can answer your questions. It started off about 9 years ago. I was a bit of a cyclist, and a girlfriend and myself went to a farewell for friends of hers. I'd never met these people. They were going to cycle from Cairo to Cape Town. It was a planned trip, supported trip over 4 months, and they asked me if I was interested in something like this, and I thought about it, and I thought, you know, that's quite nice. But I couldn't do it because I had a one-man business. If I was away from the business for 4 months, I'd virtually have to start my business over again. And at that time, I spent about 12, 13 years building up the business, and I just wasn't prepared to give it away for 4 months. So I went home and I thought about this, and 2 days later, that was a Friday evening, Sunday evening, I had decided what I was going to do. I was going to cycle around the world. It took me 2 days to decide. It took me another 2 years to plan the whole thing. Okay. Initially, I was going to keep my house, keep my furniture, etc., try and rent the house, but then I realized it just wasn't feasible. So the extra year was involved in selling the house and getting rid of everything. And eventually, January 2014, I left South Africa and flew to England to stay with my sister for a couple of months, get a few pieces of equipment ready, and then leave. In fact, I left April 22nd, 2014, which was 2 days ago, 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and I planned this journey. I planned it extensively of what I was going to take, but I didn't plan where I was going to go specifically. I had a broad route going through Europe along the Danube River to the Black Sea, and then going through the Middle East, Turkey, Iran, and then I hope to go to Pakistan, and then China, and then down through Southeast Asia. And it basically worked out to plan until I got to Turkey. I applied for a Pakistan visa, and I was told I could only get the Pakistan visa from South Africa. And this messed up my whole plans, because I don't plan that far ahead on things like that, because they can change. And I thought about this, how do I get going? I thought, okay, fine, let me change my route from Iran. I will go into the Emirates, and then I will fly to India and go through India, and then I'll work my way somehow through to Southeast Asia. But then it struck me, when I booked my ticket to the UK from South Africa, I needed a return ticket back to South Africa. And the travel agent said to me, where do I book the ticket from? And I said, I don't know, the first city that came into my mind was Mumbai. 5 seconds after I'd said that, I nearly changed it, because I wasn't planning on going to India. Why did I pick Mumbai? I have absolutely no idea. But when I got to Turkey and Iran, because I couldn't go to Pakistan, I suddenly remembered this ticket, return ticket from Mumbai back to South Africa. And I calculated where I was and how long it would take me to get to Mumbai, and it was absolutely spot on. I had 10 days in Oman, I had a few days in the Emirates, and I still had a few days left in Iran. So I got to Oman, I flew to India, immediately I transferred to a plane back to South Africa, got my Indian visa, got my Pakistan visa, flew back to Mumbai, and I continued my journey through India and then up Pakistan, China, etc. And these are things that have happened on my journey that I cannot explain. Everything, virtually everything that happened, it was for a reason. At the time I thought, no, there's something against me doing this journey. But in the end it worked out. That was the best possible solution to the issues that I had. But anyway, from there I travelled through to from Pakistan I travelled through to China, Southeast Asia, spent a lot of time in Southeast Asia, Australia, New Zealand. Then I had an issue because me and the cold don't mix. And I'd spent 6 months in Australia, I'd spent 6 months in New Zealand, and by that time if I'd gone to South America, which was the initial plan, it would have been winter in South America, which is far colder than Australia or South Africa. And I just didn't want to spend a winter in the bottom of South America. So I flew to Taiwan, spent 3 months in the little island of Taiwan, absolutely loved it. Flew to Korea, and I wanted to go to Japan, but I had the same problem as in Pakistan. I had to apply for the visa from my home country. So I gave Japan a miss and flew down to South America, went down to Terra del Fuego, and I was in the bottom of South America, Terra del Fuego, on the 31st of December.
Oh.
1st of January, which is literally the middle of summer, and it was freezing cold.
Oh.
I was wearing jerseys at night. That's cold. So imagine what it's like in the middle of winter. I have no idea, and I don't want to experience it. But from there I've travelled back up South America. I crossed all the countries. The only countries I didn't go to were those little countries on the northeast corner of South America, between Brazil and Venezuela, and also Venezuela. I didn't go to Venezuela. I didn't think it was worth the risk taking, because it was at the height of all the trouble and all that sort of stuff. But the rest, and then I crossed over, went around the Darien Gap into Panama and up all the countries through Central America, and then got into Mexico. And as I was going about to cross into the US, COVID hit. And I looked at this. Trump was busy closing all the borders, etc., and I quickly shot across the border. And I was planning to go into Canada, but the Canadian borders have closed. So I went up to Washington, crossed along the northern tier to New York State, and then my visa, US visa, was running out, and I tried to go into Canada. They turned me around and went back, and I get back into, I go out of the US and into the Canadian immigration department, and they said, no, you can't go in, so they turned me around. I went back to the US, and I said, well, I've been out of the US, give me another 6 months. They said,
It's only 100 feet or 100 yards.
they said, no, you haven't been into Canada, so you actually haven't been out of the US.
No stamp.
So I had another problem. I decided to fly to Jamaica for 3 months, tried a few of the herbs down there, and came back into New Orleans, and since then I've traveled along the Gulf Coast down to Key West and up the coast, and in Florida I met these guys. Wonderful opportunity, and I made a little detour going to Augusta. I used to be a big golf nut, and I tried to get into the golf course, but again they wouldn't let me. And I came back, and during that period of time I was fortunate. I managed to get the COVID vaccine, so it's been sometimes pretty good, etc. But I'm here now. Yeah, a couple of things I've learned. Like going into Canada, trying to go into Canada, trying to go into Augusta, I knew the answer was no. But if you don't try, the answer is always no. There may be a 5% possibility that you can get in. And that's why I tried it. And another thing I learned is a little saying. It's 10 two-letter words. And these are brilliant. If I'd been taught this at school, my life would have been totally different. And that is, if it is to be, it is up to me. Nobody else. And those are brilliant. If you have children or grandchildren, go and write that on their bedroom wall. It's one of the best statements that I've ever come across. Right, I'm going to ask you to ask. I've given you a brief overview. Chip might be able to put that map up or something.
Yeah.
And you can ask me questions about what, certain things. I know there are certain standard questions.
Yes, we do have a question that came in from Andrea on Facebook.
Yay!
If you want to take a quick question.
Yeah, fine.
So I'm wondering what the adjustment was like when he started. Did he miss his old life, or have any second thoughts once you started your journey?
Okay, let me say, I've never done anything like this in my life. I've never been on a cycle tour. I had to do all the research, right from the beginning, what bike to take, what equipment to take, what to do, everything. I gave up a lot. I gave up my house. I actually built the house. I bought the stand. I got the plans drawn up by an architect. I got a builder to build the house. It was my little dream house. It wasn't fancy, but it was my house. It was my creation. I wasn't planning on retiring, on selling that house. So when I had to sell the house, it was a major decision to take. I got rid of everything. I got rid of my furniture, I got rid of my motor car, I got rid of most of my clothes, I got rid of everything. I got rid of things I loved. My little puppy, that was a big decision. Do I miss it? Absolutely no. It's categorically no. There's one thing I miss, and that's my little puppy. Yeah, that's the only thing that I've missed. Have I regretted it? Absolutely not. It's the best decision I have ever made in my life. Yes, I have regretted being in certain places. I wanted to get out of certain places. But I have never ever said to myself, I want to go back home. In fact, I have delayed that decision to go home. And I'm going to fight it even with COVID. Because there is just so much to see in this world, and it's just absolutely fantastic. People are going to ask me, they've asked me how long is it going to take to get back to South Africa. The plan is to go New York, up there, Boston, whatever, fly across to the UK, and then go down west part of Europe, and then the west coast of Africa back to South Africa. I guess it'll probably take me another 2 years. What am I going to do after that? Quite simple. This is lap 1. There's lap 2. There's lap 3. Whatever. And that is my genuine plan of what I want to do. So I've never ever regretted it one moment. I'm lucky at my age, I'm still able to do it. And that's the only thing that will stop me. But it won't stop me traveling. It'll stop me traveling on a bicycle. But I might get, a little motor on 2 wheels or something. But I certainly don't want to stop traveling. Yeah, it's the most wonderful experience.
So the next question is, somebody asked, are you going to do Africa? Because
Oh, yes.
you're from
You're
South
from
Africa,
Africa.
There's
right?
nothing in Africa.
But there's nothing in Africa.
There's nothing in Africa. As I said, I've never done anything like this before. And I made the decision that Africa is probably the hardest continent to do. And I don't think I'm right, because I've read up quite a few people's blogs going through Africa and they've given up.
Why is
So,
that?
because it's so difficult.
Terrain
Is it
or
the terrain
people
and
or
roads?
politics?
People, food, disease,
Okay.
politics, war, all sorts of things.
Okay.
Borders.
Maybe it's a mental thing, I don't know.
Yeah.
But when I started, I'd done nothing. So it's also a bit of a historical thing why I started in the UK. The girlfriend and I that went to that farewell, we were going to do this trip together, and she was from the UK. So we were going to fly to her place, or her family's place, and buy bikes and all that stuff, and then settle from there. We'd already bought our tickets, or I'd bought my ticket, and I wasn't prepared to give that up. So again, it was a combination of things. But Africa is certainly on my radar, down the west coast, and then back down to South Africa. But the decision was, part of the motivation was, let's do the easier parts first, and then do the hard part at the end. But I'm really looking forward to Africa, because I believe it's one of the good places to go to. You'll see a lot and experience a lot.
So one other segue question, similar to the one of, do you have any second thoughts, is if you could do it all over again, would you do it sooner in life?
Good
Okay.
question.
Yes and no. And I'll tell you why. Because if I'd done it earlier, I would have had more energy. But in my phase of life, what comes after this, I couldn't care less. Okay, if I was 30 years younger, 40 years younger, I would be thinking about what to do later. I haven't got such issues. I can just go out there and enjoy myself. And so, yes and no. Probably if I had my life over again, I would probably do the same thing. I've done what I've had to do during life. I'm in a position that I can do it. In fact, when I went to the US Embassy for my visa in 2013, the woman there who interviewed me said, "Why do you want to do this?" Because I'd given her a plan. And I said, "Because I can."
Yeah.
And that was it. And she said to me immediately, "Okay, come back in 3 weeks, you can have your visa." Yeah. But no, I'll probably do the same thing, no regrets. Yeah.
So when you're traveling, when you leave a continent and have to go somewhere that you can't physically bike to, unless you're biking across the water like some of your dots there,
Yeah.
how do you get,
No, those
are planes.
dots,
those are your plane trips?
those dots are where I walked.
Sorry, Jesus. So how do you get all of your equipment from one region to another if you can't bike there?
All right. Um, the first choice would try and be boat. It's a lot easier. You just wheel your bike as is there onto the boat, take your panniers off, and get into a cabin or whatever. Most often, the most practical way is by aeroplane. I went from the UK to Holland by boat. I went from Iran to Sharjah by boat. I went from Colombia to Panama by boat. The rest of the way I've flown. Yeah. In fact, there's some countries I haven't been to because you just can't get there by boat, and it's just too much of a hassle. When I was in the bottom of India, I wanted to go to Sri Lanka.
Mhm.
They used to have a boat service, but it's become too dangerous. And the only way to get there is to fly. And Sri Lanka is just such a small country that I'd probably be there 2 weeks. And I thought, it's not worth it.
Right.
So I gave it a miss. I'll do it some other time. Yeah.
You talked about preparing, and you only prepared so far. So when it came to visas and traveling into other countries, and then I don't know how far you were with conflict and stuff in those countries, would getting a visa and then you have to say, oh, let's go around. You know, what was the most challenging thing of that, of trying to plan, getting a visa, and then you couldn't go? I mean, how far along do you have to plan to get a visa?
Look, generally a visa will take about 4 to 6 weeks. So you cannot leave it much later than that. Some countries require tests that you've got to go through. They require biometrics that you've got to go and take. So I sort of look at it in advance and see what is required. I'm on the internet from that aspect to see what countries I need a visa with my passport and what is involved in getting a visa. Some countries you can just get a visa on arrival, which is great. Other countries you have to go through a process. The UK, one has to apply in advance. The Schengen visa for Europe, one has to apply in advance. The Australian visa was one of the most difficult because not only had I to apply in advance and go for biometrics, but I also had to go for medical. Funny enough, interestingly enough, the Colombian visa that I needed was one of the most difficult to get because it was just jumping through hoops and all that sort of stuff. The Schengen visa, you needed accommodation in all the places. I was naive. I planned a route through Europe, and I booked accommodation virtually every single night. And I had this huge pile of bookings that I presented to the embassy. And they actually went through every one and said, you know, where's this day? You've missed this day or something like that, and I had to go and make another booking. But I then learned, just go and book 3 months at one hotel, and that's it. And that's all they're looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's now New Zealand. When I was in Australia, I booked a flight to leave Australia around about the 9th or 10th of December. In October, I found out something made me go into the internet because South Africans didn't need a visa to get into New Zealand. Something made me go into the internet in October, beginning of October, and they had just changed the rules that South Africans needed a visa. They gave you six weeks. I'd already booked my flight, and my flight was 8 weeks' time. So I was just out of that, and I quickly had to make arrangements to get a visa. I want to go to Ireland. South Africans don't need a visa, or they didn't. I've just found out because of COVID, we now need to apply for a visa. So you've got to be on top of it all the time. It's just part of the travel.
If you want it to be, you have to, what's your
Yeah.
face? Yeah.
And you can't look at it too far ahead, because, you know, New Zealand, I never even thought they would change it, but they did. So you've got to keep, even though, you know, you're 3-4 weeks away, you've got to have a look at it and see what the situation is. But yeah.
So we have one more question on the on Facebook. It says, is it all solo? Meaning, I guess, are you doing it solo? And then, are you self-funded? So basically, how do you pay for this? And then the last one, this might be the hardest question. I have to know, where's the puppy?
Oh.
This is coming from Cole. Yeah.
All right. Let me answer.
Gonna make him cry until.
Yeah.
I could never give my puppy up.
Yeah.
You got a puppy fix at my house.
Yeah. Good.
Okay. Yes, it is solo. I've had a friend join me on a couple of occasions until about 3 years ago, and that was in total for about 10 weeks. But the rest of the time, I might meet somebody and cycle with them for 2-3 days, but the rest of the time is totally solo. The answer to where the puppy is, the puppy went with the friend that used to join me. And I don't think I could have found any better person to look after the puppy. So from that aspect, the fact that I have regrets that I had to give up the puppy, I have no other regrets about it. The funding, I sold everything, and I'm retired, so I get a pension.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you were an entrepreneur before you did this. Like, what was your company? What?
I was a computer technician, so I used to look after guys' PCs, networks, stuff like that. Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
cool.
Just small companies, very small companies, and private people.
So Cole now says, "Oh, okay, I'm happy now." Cole is very concerned about that.
So am I.
Yes.
So when you're planning, you talk about all the different organization and places and ways you have to get hold of the visas and things like this. Being out on the road with just a bike, how do you communicate? How do you do research? What method do you carry things with you? Computers, etc. How do you work?
I started off carrying a tablet, but after 3 years, I couldn't charge the tablet anymore because of the connection. And from then I switched over to a smartphone. It's not ideal, but it's small, it's compact, it's light, and it charges quite quickly. If I need something bigger, I will stop off at here in the US, a library. I can go and use their computers. I can stop off at an internet cafe, or I stay with people in an organization called Warm Showers, and quite often I can use the computer there. So one actually works around it. You make a plan. Yeah, it's not easy, but you know, this life is not easy. It's you might think it's glamorous, but it's not.
For about a week. For about a week.
Yeah.
3 days.
It's pretty difficult. It's pretty hard, but I wouldn't change it. It's wonderful, and you just have to make a plan. If you don't make a plan, then you're going to give up. Yeah.
Speaking of your charging your devices, you want to show us some things on your bike and how you kind of keep things when you're out in remote areas where you can't stop in a 7-Eleven or some other place or library to charge your devices.
Yeah.
How you're able to charge things.
Okay, I have. Let me see if I can take this off.
That was easy.
I have a dynamo on my front wheel, which supplies power as long as I'm going about 8 miles an hour, 12 kilometers an hour. It's sufficient to be able to generate electricity. I have a USB port here at the top of my stem here, and I can plug in a battery or my mobile and charge it that way. As I say, the downfall of this is that I have to be going a certain speed. So if I'm in a mountainous area, it's pretty erratic. If I'm flat like it's here, it's absolutely fantastic. It's beautiful. I can keep my stuff charged. Yeah, the other advantage is I have a light over here, and if I go through tunnels, I don't have to worry about switching on, batteries and stuff like that. The light is accessible all the time.
So it's always, as long as you're biking, it's always on?
No, I don't switch it on. I could. If I switched it on, I can't use that.
Gotcha.
It's one or the other. In fact, the light takes precedence over the USB port. But yeah, ideally, Trip, you mentioned somebody about using a solar panel. This is probably sufficient for 85%, 80% of the time. A solar panel is also going to be efficient for 70-80% of the time. Today's weather is not good for it. A combination of both will probably give you about 95% chargeability. So yeah, I think, but then again, it's a balance between weight and what you require.
So how about the logistics, like your normal day? How many clicks are you riding? And then where do you sleep? Do you just kind of randomly find a place along the road that looks private enough? I
Yes,
guess,
okay.
water, do you filter your own water? Like how much are you living using society, or are you trying to be as self-sufficient as possible?
All right. If I try to be 100% self-sufficient, it'll be crazy. Okay, I have to use society. But I try and be self-sufficient. As far as the bike goes, I have all the tools to actually strip the bike totally. The only thing I can't do is cut a cable. But I can use cable ties and wrap it around something until I get to a bike store or somewhere and I can cut the cable. But I can strip the bike right down to its bare minimum, individual components. Water, I do carry a sterilizing pen. I've hardly used it, but when I was in Laos, in Southeast Asia, I took this route, and it was right in the middle of nowhere, absolutely nowhere. And there were no towns or anything like that, but there were a couple of rivers. And I filled up my water bottles with the water from the rivers, and I got my Steri pen, put it in, and switched it on, and it switched off immediately. Which when it detects that the water is clear, it switches off. Okay, so I switched it on, it switched off, and I thought, voila, it's good to drink.
Voila. I think voila is probably not the right word.
Oh, voila!
And I drank it,
Oh.
and nothing happened.
Oh.
Nothing happened.
Been living on the
All
road all
right.
the time.
Well,
But then I checked up on the internet about the process, and I hadn't followed the process correctly. So it
Like
shut
30
off.
seconds or something, right? Or
Well, yeah, 30 seconds to a minute to sterilize something. But it can take shorter than that if the water's pretty clear. And I was lucky.
Thankfully it was.
But yeah. It's
Do you
not-
use a Steri pen, not tablets or iodine, or just
I-
a water filter?
I initially carried
Yeah.
some tablets, but I never used them. Threw them away after a couple of years. But yeah, I've got the Steri pen. I don't even know if the batteries are charged.
That's why it's not on, so it must be good.
Yeah.
And speaking of water, do you normally, is that what we see there? It looks like you have 3 water bottle carriers normal all the time, that's all you carry?
I have 3 water bottle carriers. I also am able to put liquid in here, carry something. I have the front rack. I can, interestingly enough, when I was traveling through Oregon, because of COVID, everything was shut. All the parks were shut. The water fountains were all closed. I couldn't get water. I had to buy a 5-gallon container, and I put it on the front of my thing.
How did that affect
That's
your
another-
riding?
That's a
That's
lot
another,
of weight.
another 49 pounds.
Yeah,
That was,
Yeah.
yeah.
Another 45
look,
pounds.
it makes the steering a bit heavier.
A bit.
A bit hefty.
Just a little.
But yeah, you have to make a plan.
Yeah, the downhills are a little bit faster though.
So would it make more sense to do like a 1 gallon, 1 gallon, 1 gallon and strap it differently than a 5 gallon on the front, you know, to even out weight?
It's
Or
cheaper
does it-
buying 5 gallons.
Yes, it is cheaper, yes, for sure, yes.
Frugal.
But also as well, you have to have the ability to strap all these things together.
So what do you use to strap everything down besides bungees? Just bungees?
That's basically
That's it?
Yeah.
That's the best way?
Yeah. I have a fairly long bungee that I use to strap the 5-gallon thing. I think it was 5 gallons, but yeah. Or yeah, I think it was. It was.
That's 5 gallons.
Is that no?
Yeah.
It was
Probably the square 2.5
Isn't that 5
gallons.
So it might have been
Was it
two.
two?
It's still a lot of water.
Yeah, it's still a lot of water on the
Yeah.
front, yeah.
But
So Andrea wanted to know, do you have a daily routine regardless of where you are?
yes, I wake up in the morning, I cycle, and I go to sleep.
Somewhere eat in the middle, right?
I picked them up and put them down.
What do you like to eat on the road? What makes you happy when you eat? You know, what's something you look forward to instead of just, you know, whatever?
There's something wonderful.
Yes.
Ice cream.
Well, that's good.
Okay, I guess
Yes,
we're getting.
I know.
Because you're burning a ton of calories, right? I mean, you're going 80 KO a day. So, right? I mean, I was looking at a couple of your posts, but it looks like, you know, 50 to 80 K.
Yeah, look, you know, how far do I travel? Through that area in Laos I was talking about with the water, I travel 20 miles a day on a full day. I couldn't go any faster. The roads were, you showed me that video of the roads and that.
For the mess and the,
That-
from the epic.
Right.
That was pretty smooth compared to the roads that I went. Okay, there were boulders that big in the road, and it was crazy. 30 k's a day was the furthest I could do, and that was probably 10-12 hours of cycling.
Mm.
Okay.
Wow.
I walked down hills, I walked up hills. I couldn't go anywhere any further, any faster than that. Generally, if I do run about, just trundling along, if I do about 80 k's, which is 50 miles, or 100 k's, 63 miles, I'm pretty happy. If I do 50 k's, 30 miles, and that's the most I can do, I'm still happy. I don't set a specific target and say I have to do X number of miles a day. It's crazy. You're just going to kill yourself. So I'm very flexible on that side. I think about 5 or 6 times I've only managed to do about 20 miles a day. That's because of the terrain. It's because of the wind. It's because of the altitude. Various factors.
You know, what about riding in really bad weather
Yeah.
conditions, wind and rain?
Yeah.
You've
That
been-
affects-
what's the worst you've been in?
Okay. The furthest I've ever done is about 140 miles in
Wow.
one day.
Wow.
Wow.
It was across the northern tier. I had a very bad experience crossing the Rockies. I met a guy just before East Glacier, and we decided to go into Glacier National Park and go Road to the Sun, I think it's called. And we got to the top. It was about 6:30. This was 5th of July, so it was middle of summer. We went down. There was a notice on the gate: cyclists and hikers do not enter. Now, cut a long story short, while we were going through Glacier National, we asked people if we could go over to the top, and we got mixed results, mixed answers, and that was from officials, the rangers. Some of them told us we can't go, some of them told us we could go. So we tried to go, and we were able to get to the top. And even though there were signs you cannot go in, we were allowed to go. So we get to the top there, and we look at the sign, we say, maybe it's one of those we can't go, you know, that's incorrect. So we went through, just before we got to East Glacier, we were stopped by a traffic cop, a ranger. He gave us a citation, and he made us travel back over the top and get out of the park. He said, you cannot sleep in the park. So we turned around, we went up, we got out of the park at about 4 a.m. And we found a place to sleep, and then we continued. Now, I was going along, and I had traveled already about 140 k's, about 85 miles, and it was 2 o'clock, about 2 o'clock, and just beyond that was another reservation, which you cannot stop at. And I sat there. It was still about 7 hours before sunset, and I said to myself, I am not going to sit here doing nothing until sunset. So I set off, and I went through the reservation, and as I got out of the reservation, it was 9 o'clock, and I found a place to camp, and I camped, and that was 140 miles. Yeah, yeah. But I actually had a fabulous experience, because I was going along, it was pretty flat, and I was coming to a bit of a mountain range. And I stopped to look at my map, and this guy pulled in. He was an indigenous guy, and he said, where are you going? I said, I'm going to this place. He said, okay, take this road and just go straight. Follow it, and you'll miss out all the mountains. And he said, it is absolutely beautiful. And he was right. He was absolutely right. It was wonderful. And I was carrying on there. About an hour later, he had gone in, and he was on his way out. And he saw me, and he stopped, and he said, yeah, you just got to carry on straight, and you'll come to, yeah, fabulous. But that's basically, you know, how far I go.
And you're camping wherever you just find a spot. You
I
just,
find a spot anyway.
so you're not in campgrounds or anything. Like that. You just find a nice place that's private and set.
Okay, through various places. Where have I camped? I've camped in bus shelters. I've camped in drains. I've camped in underpasses under the road. I've camped in places where I put my tent up at night, and I woke up, and there's a half-eaten sheep carcass about 3 meters away from me.
You were tired.
At least it
I was
was sheep
tired.
and not
I was tired.
Didn't know it was there, you're so tired.
I've camped in churches, I've camped in mosques, I've camped in temples, I've camped all over the place. The only place possibly where I haven't camped is a cemetery. Okay, I still haven't got to the point where I'm that desperate to camp in a cemetery, and it's not because I'm scared of ghosts or anything like that. I just have respect for those people that are there. I know of some people that they make it a mission to even go and sleep on a grave. Sorry. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There was something else.
You want to show it, just show us like how your camping gear would be, how you carry it?
All right, I've got my tent here, and I have my sleeping bag here.
Can I ask something? You use a tent and a sleeping bag. People are moving to hammocks. I mean, is a tent and sleeping bag better than a hammock? I guess you have more versatility with that, what you have, than a hammock camping?
When I was in Malaysia, somebody gave me a hammock, and I tried it. For one, I got attacked by mosquitoes. Okay, I believe there are hammocks that have mosquito netting on, etc. Secondly, I cannot sleep on my back. I'm a side sleeper, and a hammock is there for sleeping on your back, and I just can't sleep on my back. Thirdly, you're crunched up, and I find it difficult to breathe. So, no, I prefer the tent. And you have to find trees to put the hammock up. And yeah, there's some people like it, some people prefer it. Yes, it's light. I'm not too concerned about the lightness of things. I'm more concerned about my comfort and something that's durable. You can ask Mark. I contacted Mark about getting a new rim or a wheel and stuff. And he came back with 4 or 5 different solutions, and I rejected every one because they didn't suit my requirements.
They weren't heavy enough, duty enough.
They weren't strong enough, and that's it. Yeah.
So you never stay in a hotel?
Absolutely, I do.
Oh, you do? Oh, okay.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
Oh,
I've stayed. Let me put it this way: to stay in a hotel in the US is expensive.
it is.
Okay, if I had to stay in a hotel every night in the US, my budget would be gone pretty quickly. In fact, if I had to stay in a campground every night,
Mm-hmm.
that's also very, very expensive.
It is.
That's why I wild camp.
Okay.
But I loved it during COVID because everything was closed and the campgrounds were closed. And the rangers weren't there because they had nothing to look after.
Right.
And if my bike can go round a barrier or a gate, I go.
Yeah.
And I was able to get into campgrounds that were empty, and I'd stay there for nothing and have a nice camp facility, and the next morning pack up early and I'd be gone.
But all the water was off.
Sorry?
All the water was off, all the spigots.
All the water was off, yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Initially it was a problem because all the water fountains and that were closed.
Right.
But then I found that a lot of the stores have these soda fountains,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a little button there that says water. And once I found that was me solved. The problem was solved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I never pay for water. Not,
You never pay for water.
not anymore after I found that
Yeah.
little button.
Yeah.
I go everywhere.
Yeah, it's filtered.
Yeah.
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 And it's
And they
full.
don't mind. They don't mind. I've never been kicked out by just walking in, filling my water bottle up, and walking out. They've never kicked me out. So,
it's
yeah.
not- I like it.
You learn these things as you go on.
So you lay out a type of tarping or a netting, and then you have your tent you set up, and then you're sometimes safely between water. You mentioned about coming back through the Carolinas, but with water on both sides, it kind of gives you some protection from anything coming in.
Yeah.
The
Look,
plop, the plop, plop.
I'm pretty particular about where I camp. I spend 10 minutes preparing my site because I remove all sticks, I remove all rocks, I try and remove all thorns because those tear the bottom of your tent. So I will prepare 10 minutes. I'll spend 10 minutes just preparing. I'll lay out my ground sheet, and then I'll clear everything underneath it, and then I'll put my tent. Where do I put my tent? Some places I don't care, especially in a fairly dangerous place. People like to hide, and my philosophy is if you hide and you get into trouble, You just cannot call anybody.
Nobody can see you.
Yeah. So I'd rather be near people in case something happens. If they're going to kick me out, they're going to kick me out. If they don't kick me out, then I'm fine. And if there's trouble, I can call them. Hopefully they'll respond. But yeah. The other day I was in North Carolina, and I found this spot in a forest, and I took the road up about half a mile. I found this little siding, and it was nice and sheltered with the trees and that, and I put my tent ground sheet down. The sole of my shoe had come off, so I repaired it quickly. I bought some super glue and I repaired it, and I sat there and I heard voices, and so quickly grabbed things up, and I went and I sat by the side of the road next to my bike, and I waited and I waited and I waited, and nobody came. So, being quite inquisitive, I got up and I walked towards the main road there, in the forest, and then suddenly there were these two youngsters that came, and they both had rifles, and we chatted, and they said, you know, their father and uncle and that had cleared the road, and this was part of their property and that. But I never asked them about if I could stay there. But I knew they'd go back home and speak to their parents and that. And sure enough, half an hour later, this camouflage golf cart comes. Guy stops and he says, "You know you're trespassing." I said, "Yes, I know." There's no use arguing.
Right.
It's a fact. And he said, "You're going to have to leave." So I said, do you want me to leave now? He said, "Yes." I said, "Well, can I stay the night?" And his companion, who I think was possibly his older brother, said, "Yes, you can stay the night." And I said, "Fine, I won't mess up. I'll be gone by 8 o'clock. Put my tent up. Next morning I woke up quite early. I heard a huge gunshot early in the morning. I don't know whether it was a warning to me, but,
Your alarm.
It's your Laura. Time to go.
but it was some huge caliber rifle, whatever, cannon, I don't know. And packed up, I left, got onto the main road, and got off. About half an hour later, this vehicle pulls up next to me, and there's this woman in driving. She said, "Are you the gent who slept in our property last night?" So I said, "Well, if you're the owners of the property, yes, I am the gent who slept in your property." She said, "Well, I'd like to give you something for your journey." And she gave me a $100 bill.
Wow.
Can you believe it?
No.
Can you believe it?
Yeah.
And I looked at this and I said, "Oh, thank you very much." And when she drove off, I said, "Gee, it pays to trespass."
I'm going to do it every night.
But I think her sons, or whoever they were, they almost shot me because they must have thought I was a deer or something.
So going into that, during hunting season, I wear a red cap anywhere I hike, because I've been in places where you go on trails and you're in forestry area that people are leasing to hunt.
Yes.
And do you have to worry about hunting season anywhere else in the world?
I don't know when hunting
Well,
season.
I know, and right now, that's the thing, is you have to pay
Ignorance-
attention, because
ignorance-
it's turkey season right now.
Yeah,
So,
ignorance is bliss.
yeah, it really is. So, I mean, is that something you'd pass on, saying maybe wear a red cap or something
You see,
or just wing it?
I think deers are setting up
You
tents
see,
though.
you see,
Yeah.
you see this cover.
Yeah.
It's sort of grey. It used to be orange. I had an orange one.
Yeah, till today.
So everything there is pretty dull colours.
Mhm.
It's to hide. Okay, that's what I do, as I try and hide.
Oh.
Okay, so it's a conflict.
Mhm.
Yes, it certainly is an issue, but all the times I've been into forests, and I've been into hunting lodges as well, quite a few times. I was in Florida somewhere, and I took this road, the gate was open, and I come across this hide. I approached it very carefully and realized it was empty, and then there was another little road going down, and there was one of these feeders. You know, they scatter corn and all that sort of stuff. So I knew it was a hunting place, and I found a little area further down the road, and I put my tent up and I slept. And on the way out, I looked at the feeder, and there was a whole lot of new seed, new corn on the ground. So somebody had been there since the previous time that I'd walked past there. But yes, it's, you know, my philosophy at this point of time is that whatever I've given up to do this journey has paid me back many, many times over. I hope I don't die soon, because there's still a lot to see. But I've seen a hell of a lot already. So, yeah, that's just life.
Well, then what about things like, what's some of the different types of creatures and animals, and both all, you know, U.S. and other countries you've come across that you've had experiences with?
Good or bad.
Yeah, it's true.
All right. I've had quite a few experiences with people, the animals, and I've had a few experiences with other things, other animals. Let me tell you one, I haven't told you about it, but I crossed over into Iran from Turkey, and I don't know how this guy did it, but he was a money changer. He ripped me off. Now, the problem with Iran is you cannot use any card at all, credit, debit, anything, because of the sanctions. You cannot, so you've got to take cash. And people know that you take cash. And I had a certain amount of cash, and this guy ripped me off about 10% of what I was carrying. And I was worried about I wasn't going to have enough. As it turned out, I had plenty, because it's quite cheap. And the second day I was in there, I was riding along, and some guy stopped me. He pulled off on the side of the road, and he gets out of his car, and he flashes something, and he says police. Flashes the badge, and he says police, and he says to me, how much money have you got? So I said, it's none of your business. He says, I want to know. I said, no, I don't have to tell you, because when I applied for my visa, I told them how much money I had, and they were happy. It's none of your business. He said, show me. So I told him to F off.
That's nice.
Straight like that.
Yeah.
I said, just F off. And he did. He turned around, got in his car, and he drove off. Much to my surprise. Now, at the time, I was trying to beat a rainstorm up ahead, and it pissed me off immensely. So I got back onto my bike, and the rhythm is just gone. And you try and go, and you try and go, and the town I was trying to get to, called Marand, I didn't get to it before the rain came. But as the rain started, there was a gas station and a little store, general store, like a hardware store, selling all sorts of things and a bit of food. And I walked in there, and I sheltered, and there were 4 guys in there, 3 friends and the owner of the store. And they couldn't speak English. I couldn't speak Farsi. So I'm walking around there, and I take a packet of biscuits, and I take a cool drink, and I put it on the counter, and the guys say, you know, no money. So I said, oh, that's nice. And this is part of the hospitality of Iran. I learned. But they were talking and that, and I had the cool drink, and I had the biscuits and that, and then they, with sign language, they said to me, you know, everything all right? I went like that. You know, thumbs up. And there's deadly silence. Absolute deadly silence. They just stopped in their tracks. And I didn't know what was happening. I looked at this and I thought, thumbs up, you know. You like something on Facebook, you like this on Twitter, you like, you know, everybody knows that. Little did I know that Facebook is banned in Iran. They don't get it. And at any rate, its conversations slowly started up again, etc., and the rain didn't stop, but they found me a place to sleep at night, so, you know, everything was okay. But I never forgot this, and a couple of days later I was speaking to somebody and I said to them, you know, I told them the story and I told them this, and they said, phew. I said, well, what does that mean? You know, he said, it's the worst insult you can give to any Iranian.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. In Iran and probably a lot of very Muslim countries, homosexuality is banned. Now, when I did this, I told the guy to go and have sex with his best male friend.
Oh no.
Oh,
Okay?
Ooh.
So, all the hospitality he's given me, I suddenly insulted.
But they let it go. They're just.
No,
they just-
those biscuits and that drink just cost him
Yeah.
everything in his pocket.
And they were. I mean, it's amazing they didn't chop your head off or.
Well,
it's just,
I think
just
they must
walked-
have spoken
They knew.
amongst it and realized that I probably didn't know. But, you know, that's why there was sudden silence. And when I found that out, I wished I could go back and
Yeah.
apologize to these guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was so difficult afterwards when somebody asked me, you know, how you are, not to do that. Their thumbs up
So
is
okay.
Is okay.
Okay, is
But
better.
then you go to other countries and
Yeah,
that's
that's
an
And that's an
insult.
insult too. So you just smile.
So when you pull up to a store or gas station to get out of the rain, do you lock your bike up or you just
Oh.
lean it against the building?
Yeah,
Yes, I
sure.
do. But it depends.
Okay.
I can leave my bike in, for instance, in Iran, and
Anywhere.
come back unlocked and come back 2 days later and it'll still be there.
Okay.
Okay. There's possibly a minute chance that something is taken, but
But
generally
the bike will still be there.
stuff will be there. I flew back to South Africa from India, and I went through Doha. I flew Qatar Airlines, and at the time, five planes landed together, and they were just pushing us through security, the scanners and all that, to try and get people through. And I left my wallet in one of these boxes that you put the stuff through the scanner. My wallet was black, the box was black, they were pushing, and I didn't feel in, and I didn't see the wallet. I traveled through that airport again 6 weeks later, and I went to inquiries and I said, look, this is the story. They phoned up, lost property, and they said, we have a wallet here, describe it. I described it, they said, we've got it, it's your wallet.
Whoa.
I couldn't go and get it because it was outside customs. So the lady who helped me, she was from Nigeria, she said, okay, I'll go and fetch it. And she went, she brought it back, and every single last cent was in that wallet.
Wow.
Everything. And I said to her, I said, if this had happened in my country, there'd be nothing there. She said, yes, in my country too.
Wow.
So it depends.
Okay.
I was in Chile. I'd arrived in Chile, and I went into a store to get a SIM card. I'd locked my bike with a cable lock, and I was in there for 3 minutes. The store didn't have a SIM card, so I was out. I come out, and my bike's not there. I had everything on it. The only thing I had with me was my bar bag. Everything else was on the bike, and it was gone. And I spoke to somebody who happened to be able to speak English, and we started sort of looking around, and then somebody walked up the road and said, there's a bike round the corner. So I went there, and there was my bike. They'd taken my helmet and my pump, but nothing else.
But tell them why they couldn't go any further, though.
Yeah. I have handbrakes on my bike. and they couldn't push it. The wheels are locked.
A little piece, little rubber band. That's it.
Oh, that is so
Oh,
good.
that's
Little
so
rubber
great.
flat
Oh
rubber
my
bands.
gosh, that's so smart.
Just to lock it
See?
in place.
Okay.
I couldn't move in my own garage, that's how it started, the
It's,
story.
if it's done properly, you just can't move it. Yeah.
Brilliant.
And it was just too heavy, it's too heavy to pick
Right,
up.
and carry.
And they couldn't push
They
it.
had a lock around it, they cut the lock.
Yeah.
That's
they cut
funny.
So it was
Two
locked
little
too, you said it was
buttons.
locked too.
Yeah, there was a cable lock on it, yeah, they cut it.
That's great.
And it's something I have always done. And people have criticized me for doing it. Why are you doing it? And, you know, it saved my
It
butt.
worked.
It worked.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's $3, $2 or $1 to make that buy that.
Have there been countries that seem friendlier than others, and where does the US fall in there?
Okay. The most hospitable country I've been to, you aren't going to believe this. And most people, people who haven't traveled and that are probably not going to believe it either, but it's Iran.
I knew you were going to say that.
The Persian people are the most hospitable people I have ever met. Besides that guy that tried to rip me off with the money, I was stopped many times, offered tea, cake, water, fruit, biscuits, place to sleep, everything. In fact, at one time, I'd stopped off at a mosque and made arrangements with the guy in charge of the mosque, the caretaker, not the imam, the caretaker, and he'd invited me back into his little cubicle and gave me supper. And then some guy comes in, a youngster, fairly young chap, maybe in his early 30s, well dressed, etc., and says to me, I must go with him. I must go and sleep at his place. Okay, and I said, no, I've already made arrangements, I'll come tomorrow night and sleep at your place, and I didn't. But the hospitality there is amazing. I was traveling to a place called Persepolis. It's a very famous archaeological site, supposed to be about 3,000 years old or something. I question that because of the condition of some of the stuff. But be that as may, Iran is desert from top to bottom, and it's hot, and a father and son stopped me and they asked me if I wanted anything, and I said yes. Do you have some cold water? And they said no, we don't have. I said okay, that's fine, I'll find some down the road. 15 minutes later, the same vehicle stopped from the other direction. They got out, they had 2 big liter bottles of frozen water, ice. They gave it to me, plus they gave me an energy drink.
Wow.
This is the kind of thing that happened. Another quite funny thing, I laugh at it because it was so funny, but this typifies what they like. 2 youngsters stopped in their truck, and they started talking to me, and I told them what I'm doing, and they went, the one said okay, he went to his truck and he got some biscuits, and he brought them, gave them to me. The other guy looked at this, he goes to the truck and he gets some grapes, a bunch of grapes. The first guy looks at this, goes back to his truck, and he gets out some apples.
So it's a competition at that point.
Eventually I said, stop, I can't carry anything.
Trying to outdo each other.
But how delightful to have that fresh fruit, and wow, that's very
But just think of that. I was traveling through on a highway, as hot as anything. It was 40 degrees, which is over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and there's nothing. As I say, it's desert. There are trees, but they're quite far away from the road. And I was looking for some shade, and the only shade I could find was let's say a 3-yard by 1.5 yard road sign. And I put my bike down and I put my ground sheet in the shade and I sat there. And this truck pulls up. And the driver comes out And with sign language, he says to me, "Have you got water?" I said, "Yes." And he goes to my water bottles and he feels the water bottle. He says, "No." And he opens it and pours it out. And I said, "Whoa, whoa." Now I've got nothing, at least I have water.
Now the answer is no.
So he takes my water bottles and he goes to his truck and he fills it up with ice cold water. And he said, he comes back and he says, "Have you got something to eat?" I said, "Yes, I've got something to
He
eat."
said, no, I don't.
So he said, "Wait." And he goes and he comes back with this ice cold watermelon. Ice cold watermelon. And you know, in the heat of the sun, ice cold watermelon
It's the best.
is wonderful. And he says, "Here, take it." I said, "I can't take it. I can't put it on my bike." And he spent about 3 minutes trying to fit it in these bungee cords, and it kept falling off. And he said, "Wait." And he goes to his truck and he comes out with a knife and he cuts it open and he slices the fruit. And there the two of us, total strangers, under this little 2x4 patchwork of shade, are eating ice cold watermelon. Isn't that wonderful?
It is. How long did you stay in Iran?
6 weeks.
Wow.
So we got a couple in from Andrea again. I'll do the easy one first and then the deep one later. So have you ever needed medical care? If so, what did you do? So how does that work when you're traveling the world?
The most medical care I've needed is a dentist. Yeah, and I've needed a dentist quite a few times. I've been quite fortunate. When I was in Argentina, I went through quite a difficult period, and I was quite stressed out. Believe it or not, I do get stressed, and I got shingles. But I was able to, you know, sort of relax and sort that out. I've had diarrhea a couple of times. Believe it or not, it never happened in India. Delhi belly didn't happen, but it happened. It happened in Pakistan, but yeah, it just wait it out. Let's put it that way. Yeah, take some medication and that's it. I've been lucky. I've been very, very lucky that I haven't had serious issues.
No broken bones, no stitches, no crashes?
Yes, I have had. I've had a couple of carcinomas taken out. I think that's the right one. It's not the it's the benign one. It's carcinomas or melanomas. I think it's carcinomas. I've had a couple of those taken out. I was knocked over in Seoul. Yeah. I was riding on this cycle path, and just like here, if you're turning right, you look for vehicles, and if there's nothing, you go. This person looked for vehicles, didn't see any cars, and I was right in front of the vehicle, and they pulled off. Fortunately, they were going slowly. Fortunately, I had my panniers on. So I was pretty much protected from that. But yeah, look, a few things were broken on the bike. I insisted that they go and take me to a medical facility and give me the once over, and everything was okay. Yeah. But that's I've had a couple of falls. The other day, well, about a year ago, in fact today, about a year ago, I was travelling down a hill, fortunately very slowly, and a piece of wire got caught in my bike, and the next minute I knew I was sitting up looking down straight at the tar over my front wheel. The front wheel had stopped, the wire got caught in the brakes, etc., and it just stopped. But yeah, I have been lucky. I have been very, very lucky.
And that's not the barbed wire story.
No,
Oh. Tell us about it.
Yeah, good
Yay!
That was the barbed wire story.
Netherlands? Where was this?
I was in New Zealand,
New Zealand.
and I needed to go for a comfort stop. So I parked my bike. There's a fence.
Oh.
There were barbed wires, and the top one was a clean wire, and I touched it. It's fine. So put my leg over, push down, and as I'm about to climb over, it's electrified.
Impulse.
Oh.
Impulse.
Wow.
I had
But needless to say, your comfort stops was right there.
I got over very quickly because there was a reason to get over. Now I had to get back over.
We find it funny because both Michelle and Brian own horses and have electrified fences.
And we've been zapped.
But yeah, animals are just absolutely wonderful. I was in Malaysia, and they have a whole lot of monkeys. For Southeast Asia has a whole lot of monkeys. Thailand, I think, has a monkey temple where monkeys rule. Humans, they are second-class citizens of that temple. But I was there. I think it was Malaysia or Cambodia. But I stopped at this place where there were a few monkeys. There were people there. The monkeys were chasing the woman, and the woman was scattering and shouting and all this thing. And I'm on my bike, sitting there watching these monkeys. And this one male comes up. He must have been about this big. He was one of the biggest. He was the alpha male. They have beards, so he probably thought I was a threat.
Oh no.
Yeah. And he comes running up to me, and he goes, look at this, and I think, what must I do? Run away. So I go, wow! I've never seen a monkey run away so
Because it was the biggest monkey with a beard.
It was so
great.
funny. I was in the first night that I ever paid to camp in the US. I was up in Washington. I had just crossed over into Washington and Washington State, and they just opened up the campsites. And I went through and I paid my money, and the ranger at the booth said to me, just be careful of the raccoons.
Oh.
Okay, they haven't had contact with humans. They're probably quite hungry, and they probably have lost their fear of humans. And I put up my tent, and I'm sitting there and I'm watching. There's a car park maybe 30 yards away, and I watch this raccoon saunter across the car park and stand up at the back of a vehicle. The trunk was open, and it looked, turned around, and then it came towards me. And I could see it, you know when there's a person up to no good, he's just sauntering around.
Minding his own business.
And this raccoon did exactly that. It zigzagged across the
He wasn't whistling, was it?
zigzagged across the grass. It went behind a tree, up onto the branches, down, and there was a picnic table, and I put my panniers just in front of the picnic table. And he went and he climbed onto the picnic table. Now I was sitting down and I was watching this guy. And I was sitting down like this, and he came and he jumped on the table, and he came towards my panniers, and as he did that, I jumped up and I went, wow! And this guy flipped over. I'm sure he turned inside out. And I never saw him again. That day.
Poor little thing.
But the next day, I'm sure he went back into his little burrow wherever he is, and he said to his wife, he says, "You better go there. There's this lunatic human being. You better go and sort this guy out." Because this other raccoon, which was a lot smaller, came in and sneaked and tried to steal my shoes. Beautiful. I just loved them. Wonderful.
The raccoon told the other raccoons, the biggest monkey I ever seen.
But I was in Malaysia. Now Malaysia, they had all these forests and that, where all the apes and etc. were, and they've chopped a lot of those down, and they planted palm oil plantations. Now the problem with palm oil plantations is the elephants love the fruit, and the rats love the fruit. The elephants they can deal with, they put an electric fence around. But the rats, how they deal with that is they release pythons into the forest. Okay, pythons aren't poisonous, but still. Now, at night I have to get up 3, 4, 5 times, just depends on how much I've drunk. And in this forest, a lot of the fronds from the palms had fallen down, and they created this mat. And I found a place where there were no fronds. I put my tent up. I'm in my tent, fall asleep, and I wake up and I have to go for a comfort break. And I'm listening there, and you hear the rustle of something in the fronds. And I know there's a snake there, or at least a rat. And if there's a rat there, there's a snake pretty close by. So you wait and you listen. As soon as you hear that, you know the guy is busy. Open the tent out.
Yeah, 3 minutes.
Back in the tent and fall asleep.
Great.
So Andrea's deeper question.
A deeper question.
She even says it, deep question. What brings meaning to your life?
Oh, that's great.
What brings meaning to my life?
Yeah, like as if biking around the world isn't enough.
I don't know if I can answer that. I guess at the moment is just, seeing things, experiencing things, seeing the different cultures, meeting people. Yeah. Just something simple like that.
Right.
I've been asked many times why I'm doing this journey. Okay.
That's really
Maybe that's part of the question that she wants to know. The simple answer is because I want to see the world. That's it. I was in southern Chile and riding along the Carretera Austral, which is quite a famous road. It's Route 7 actually, through Chile. There's very little there. And I'm riding along this sand road, and there's this guy comes running down the hill, and he stops me and he says to me, "Have you had breakfast?" So I said, "No." He said, "Do you want breakfast?" I said, "Oh, please." Yeah. So go up there, and he's there with his mate. His mate's a big guy. This guy's a little skinny, scrawny guy, but he could speak English. The mate couldn't. He could only speak Spanish. They gave me breakfast and then they started asking me questions. And they got stuck on the question, why am I doing this? And I said, because I want to see the world. They said, no, there has to be a deeper meaning to this. And they were quite insistent that there was a deeper meaning. And the more I said, I'm just there to see the world, the more they became very persistent. And eventually I started putting up the shutters. You know, I wasn't interested in this anymore. And then they said to me, you've got to be finding something. Are you looking for God, or are you looking for whatever? And I said, no. They said to me, do you believe in God? And I said, no. And that was it. I realized the end of the conversation was there. And I said, okay, thanks for the breakfast. I put out my hand to shake their hand. They said, we don't shake the hand of a person who doesn't believe in God. Now, okay, I'm not going to go into this at all, but it taught me a very good lesson. If somebody wants something dramatic and they ask me, why am I doing this? I will give it to them. I was cycling through California and some guy comes up beside me on his bike and he said, what are you running away from? The same question, you know, what are you doing this? So I turned around to him and I said, 3 women and 7 children.
There's your dramatic.
There you go.
That was it. End of the question.
He's like, you got another bike?
You got room in them panions for us?
Okay, just something on that. I'm not running away from anybody, and certainly not 3 women or 7 children. But yeah, it's the same as when, you know, people ask me, how do I cross the ocean? Well, you know, it's either by aeroplane or by boat. And in Australia, they try to be cynical about it. Let me put it that way. They try to make a fool of me. And that's why I came up with walking across the water. Now, it's caught most people, except one woman when I was in Mexico, Baja California. There were all these snowbirds that go down and they camp there for maybe 6 months or whatever. And we were at a little get-together and somebody asked me, you know, how do I cross the ocean? So I said, I walk. Quick as a flash, she was sitting next to me. She said, oh goody, can you turn my water into wine? No, that was brilliant. I like that. I like that kind of humor. That's wonderful. You know, turning it around.
I got a question. When you started off, were you as humble as you are now? As in taking, you know, when you start off, you have this idea of where you're going to go and how you're going to do it. When was the point you said, I'm going to take breakfast, I'm going to take lunch, I'm going to take this time off with these people, I'm going to eat, if they offer food, I'm going to take it? Was that from the beginning, or was that developed with your travels?
I would say that was developed.
Developed?
I first travelled through a little bit of the UK and then through Europe, and the facilities are all there. The campsites are there. The campsites are quite reasonably priced. The shops are there. You can buy literally anything, except on a Sunday in certain countries. France, their stores are closed on a Sunday.
Huh.
Germany, I think Belgium as well, I'm not sure. But I found quite a lot of countries, their stores, especially in the rural areas, Sunday, in fact from Saturday afternoon, they were closed. But yeah, then slowly people start offering you things. Europe, Western Europe, I got offered nothing, absolutely nothing. And slowly going into Eastern Europe and then Asia and that, people started offering me things. And I found that if somebody offers you something, take it. Okay, because it's often an insult if you turn it down. No matter what they look like, no matter what how well off they look or how badly off they look. If they offer you something, take it. In certain countries you have to be a bit careful about that, because in Asia, if they offer you something, refuse it twice. And if they offer you something again, the third time, they mean it, then take it. But at the end of the day, if they're serious about offering you something, take it, because otherwise it's an insult. And also, you have to understand the different cultures, because if here, for instance, in the US, in Europe, if you offer somebody something and they refuse it, that's it, the end of the transaction. In other countries, if they refuse it, you offer it again and again. You offer it 3 times. And because they want to make sure that it is a genuine offer. Okay, so you've just got to be careful. But generally, overall, if somebody does offer something, I will take it because of the insult thing.
Imagine those 7 years that you've been doing it so far. There had to have been times of loneliness, being alone, being out there by yourself, solo. How did you get through that?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
She's not leaving because she wants to.
I was gonna go to the restroom.
Should we have a break on that before
can if you
that
want.
question? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
All right, quick break.
Sorry.
Is it just a one-person potty?
No, there's 2 different ones.
Okay.
We are still live, so don't say anything. Thank everybody for watching.
Thanks for the warning.
Yeah, Andrea's got a couple more questions that's popped up, so.
Yeah, I'm watching on Facebook right as we're doing it too.
Oh, good. Is it, so it's coming through okay?
Yeah, that's going through good. Yeah.
Great.
Good.
So what's it do now?
It's amazing there is a time delay.
Yeah, it
What,
should be.
Yeah.
Chip, what Facebook page?
I got a dog.
With these.
So that's the big thing is you were talking about your puppy, but I
They're a
have
lot
a
of
dog
work.
that I absolutely love, and
Yes,
he
they are.
fulfills a lot of
Ann would
those
tell you,
things.
yeah,
So
Ann would
if I
be
was to
going,
hit
yes,
the
yes,
road,
yes.
my idea is like where would he
It's a
go
good thing you guys
and
have
how would I
food.
feel not having that connection with that
Yeah.
that animal? I mean,
Yeah.
he makes my life, you
Yeah.
know. So it's hard. When you said your puppy, I was like, huh, my heart a little broke a little bit. But
He's gotten a lot. Now I understand why this whole last couple of days he's been with us. But he and him Sam have been like this.
yeah.
I can't break. I almost break the bond.
Yeah, you're
But then
like,
Sam looks at me and goes, "Okay, Daddy, sorry."
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
sorry,
these two
sorry.
men spend a lot of time together.
Yeah. It is. Yeah.
All right. Do I get lonely? Of course. But probably not as lonely as people think, because my day is taken up doing things. I'm busy. I wake up, I'm packing, and then I'm on the road looking for food, looking where to go, seeing things, etc. On a bicycle, with a companion, it's quite difficult. And when I say that, to have a conversation, you've got to ride abreast. And to me, that's dangerous.
Yeah.
So you're riding one in front of the other. Sometimes you're riding different speeds. You're going different. So there are only certain times when you really can have a conversation. I ride, most of the time I ride until just before sunset. And then I'm looking for a place to put my camp, my tent, putting my tent up. And there's one thing if I could get rid of, I would do that. And that's little things called mosquitoes. So as soon as I've put my tent up, I'm in my tent. And I'll listen to what's happening, etc., etc., and then I'll fall asleep. So generally there's no time to sort of get lonely. I'm also fortunate that I'm comfortable with myself.
That's good.
I'm very much, or when I started, very much an introvert. I still am pretty much an introvert. So introverts are comfortable with themselves. It was funny. I was in Titusville middle of February, and I wanted to watch one of the SpaceX launches. And I'd been there for about 3-4 days because they'd always been cancelled. And so every time it was cancelled, I said, okay, I'll wait one more time. Cancelled. No, I'm here, it's close. One more time, I'll wait. And I'd seen almost everything to see in Titusville. I don't know what there is to see there besides Cape Canaveral and Kennedy Space Station, which you can't get to in any case. So I took a trip up one of the cycle paths and came back, and I met somebody, and the person said to me, "Aren't you lonely?" I said, "Well, not really." And then I went to a fast food place, and I bought some food, and I got bored, so I went back to the park where I was going to watch the launch, and I met somebody in the park, and we actually spent 3 days together. It was quite funny because I wanted to watch the launch. I had a shelter with a picnic table under there, and that night we both spent the night under the picnic table sheltering from the rain. It was quite funny. But yeah, after that 3 days together I had to leave, and then I realized that yes, I do get lonely. It was quite a rude awakening on that, and it's taken me two months to actually overcome that. Yeah, so yes, I do get lonely.
Then I brought it up again, so now it's
No, I'm actually over that. I'm actually over that. Yeah, I have a philosophy, and I had to talk to myself about it. I look at life like driving a motor car. You look through the windscreen. You don't look in the rearview mirror all the time. You can't forget what's behind you. That's why the rearview mirror, and that's why it's only a very small section of what you're looking at. So you've got to look at it at front and concentrate on the front. Forget about. And I was concentrating on the rearview mirror, and that's what actually made me lonely. Yeah.
That's a great analogy.
Thank you.
Have you had anyone mess with your things when you've been at a campsite? I mean, like when you're in your tent? I mean, have you...
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
That would stress
Both
me.
human and animal.
I was traveling from Paraguay, Asuncion, down to Cordoba in Argentina. On the way there's a town called Santa Fe. There's Asuncion, Santa Fe somewhere over here.
Mm-hmm.
And I stopped off next to a river, and I generally leave my shoes outside. And I carry 2 ground sheets just in case it's very rocky to try and protect. And I had the one ground sheet outside, and I had my shoes outside. And I got up during the night and unzipped my tent, and I thought, that's funny, where's my ground sheet? It's not there. Okay, where are my shoes? My shoes are gone. Now, I have these flat pedals which have these pins on them. If I don't have my shoes, I can't ride. And I got up and I looked around, I found I had a pair of flip-flops and these sandals. And I found one flip-flop, and I found my pair of socks, but nothing else. And I thought, well, you know, I'm screwed. I'm finished. So I managed to fall asleep. I woke up quite early, and I started looking around, and then I found some dogs. And I found one of the other shoes, not the other pair of the flip-flop, and they were leading towards a property, and I started going into the property, and I found the other flip-flop.
It's like a trail of shoes.
Yes,
Yeah.
there was a trail. And there was a guy in the property, and I pointed to my one shoe. Okay, and I said, you know, your dogs have taken my one shoe. Have you seen it? Without hesitation, he went to the kennel and he got the other shoe.
Now what about the ground sheet?
The
Instead of a tent.
That was done.
The ground sheet I found.
Oh.
Yeah, the ground sheet I wasn't worried about. But without my shoes,
They were
I would
sitting
have
there
been
on
finished.
tent.
I would have been finished.
Dogs
Yeah.
took your shoe.
Yeah, but otherwise, not really. I don't
That's
think,
amazing.
I can't recall people having messed me around.
Okay.
It's funny, if you leave something in the open, they'll take it. If it's in an enclosed place, like a tent, it seems like they don't touch it.
Yeah, not locked.
Yeah. Yeah,
Do you still leave your shoes outside?
no.
So Andrea, speaking of gear, she wants to know what's your favorite piece of gear? And then the second question is there any item or keepsake that you take with you that you don't really need?
Okay. What, one of my favorite pieces of gear is that. Okay.
Just a bunch of-
And it was one of my favorite pieces of gear even before it happened, the incident happened. Another piece of gear which I've actually lost is a little bamboo stick, about that big. And I use that as a bike stand. I have a Surly frame, a Surly Ergo frame, best frame in the world. But Surly don't recommend putting a bike stand on there. For various reasons. And I contacted them less than a week ago to see if they changed their mind, but they hadn't. So I use a piece of bamboo as a bike stand. I will lean the bike up against the piece of bamboo, put it here or against the crossbar, and with my handbrakes on, the bike doesn't move. And it's nice, because I can stop anywhere. I don't need a tree, I don't need a building or anything. Those are some of my two favorite pieces. They're not the most essential, but it makes life a bit easier. What I carry that I don't necessarily need, there are probably quite a lot of items that I've got that are just in case. Okay, and I've never used them. Gear cables, I've got spares. I don't know. No, not
You don't have
really.
a photograph of the puppy?
You don't have a charm, you don't have like something that gives you good luck, or something that you just hold on to because life.
Before I left, my mom gave me a St. Christopher, a chain St. Christopher. I don't wear things around my neck except for this. Been on my own, this has got contact details, who I am, allergies, etc., blood group, just in case I'm injured and I can't talk. I've used that to put my keys on. That's the only thing I carry around my neck. I've never worn a chain or anything. I've got that locked away somewhere. 22 years ago, I was at a conference, and there was a guy from India. He came and he gave me a little Ganesh, a wooden Ganesh. I didn't know the significance of it at the time. For some reason I brought it with me. And when I was in India, I realized what it was. Okay. That's my good luck charm. That's it. Yeah.
I think you're missing your most favorite piece of gear on top of your seat.
My hat.
Your trademark.
Yeah, that's one of the necessities I need, because when I first started cycling,
You had here?
I got burnt because of the gaps in the helmet.
Oh no.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So I had to wear
I didn't
something.
think about that.
Yeah,
Me
I had
either.
to wear something, and then it covers my ears, it covers my neck, and stuff like that. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
It fits under your helmet.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And that's why there are these black marks. They're from the helmet.
Mm.
There we go. Now you're looking normal.
So, how many times do you wash clothes, wash your hat, wash your gear? I mean,
Oh,
whenever you got a chance, or 2 weeks, 5 weeks, you just keep going until you got a washer, you know? Someone offers it.
Extreme.
Can we
What's the longest you've gone without washing?
can
Let's
we
go with that.
can we switch the
The PG version?
I was in Australia. I landed in Perth and I travelled across. I was going to meet somebody in Brisbane on the east side, and they were going to fly in, I think, to Sydney or somebody, and then catch a bus and meet me wherever I was. 3 weeks before they flew in, they said to me, "Where are you going to be? They need to know where I'm going to be." And I said, "Well, I can't tell you. I just can't tell you. Something can happen, whatever." They said, "Well, then they can't make plans." I said, "Okay, forget it. I will meet you in Brisbane." And I crossed Australia in 8 weeks. It was a total of 5,300 kilometers.
Wow.
8 weeks is 56 days. I had 3 days break.
Oh,
3 days break. So I did 53,000 kilometers in 53 days. That's 100 k's a day, 62 miles a day.
Wow, that's a lot.
And you know, quite often the wind is blowing and you don't have a break, you don't have proper food, you don't have proper sleep, etc. And I didn't want to take too much time. So I think I went pretty close to 3 weeks without having a shower. I did on occasion wash. I got these wet wipes, you know, wash whatever. But I think I changed my clothes 3 days after I had a shower, so I went about 15, 16 days without changing the clothes. It actually wasn't as bad as one thinks. Yes, the clothes were bad. I washed them in the bath in the hotel, and I think I had to wash them 3 times before the water even looked reasonably
Maybe there's
clean.
a max saturation.
But I've when I was in China, I caught a train. China's just too big to cross. So I got 30 days visa, and I could extend it for another 30 days. So I had 60 days to cross China. And some guy said to me, "Look, take a bus from when you get into China and take it to a certain town, city over here,
Yeah.
where all the reds start." And he said, "You can cycle from there easily in 60 days down to Laos. So I had to catch a train, and I went through a security check that would put most security checks at airports in the shade. They checked everything. They put my bags through the scanners. Now on my one pannier here at the back, I carry my fuel bottle for my stove. When it went through the scanner, they saw the fuel bottle, and they wanted it. I had my stuff in a cardboard box, and they looked at the pannier and they looked at everything in the pannier. They took out, believe it or not, they took out a can of shaving cream, and they confiscated that because they said it's flammable. They took out a brand new can of underarm deodorant. It's flammable, but they never found what they were looking for because it's on the outside of the pannier, not on the inside. And there was no ways I was going to tell them that. Eventually they let me go through. But I thought, you've taken my deodorant away. Now you guys are going to suffer. I'm not going to use deodorant.
So you did use deodorant as one of your, personal items you kept.
I used to use it.
Yeah. Oh, you don't even.
I don't use it anymore.
Oh, you just said.
Yeah, because I have this theory, and I don't know if it's quite true, people who are medicals and all this sort of stuff, and I'm not asking for marketing, guys, because you're going to try and sell your products. But I believe that the body reaches a point where it starts self-cleaning to a certain degree. And I've met quite a lot of travelers who actually do the same thing. Okay, you wash, you put deodorant on, and I have this theory as well that there's some chemical in the deodorant that starts smelling after 24 hours or something. It's not your body odor, or it's the body odor and the chemical that does that. I might be wrong, but I've noticed, and my sister came and joined me in Argentina, and I told her, and I said to her, do I smell? And she said no.
I didn't smell you.
Yeah, yeah. The only thing that you will smell is, you won't smell any perfume, which I think people are looking for. But if there is an odor, it's going to be the sweat of the clothes. So you're going to have to wash the clothes. But yeah, of course you wash, you down, you know what. I carry a face cloth and water and that, and I have a quick.
Do you use natural soaps then when you wash? What do you?
I have bought a soap of glycerine.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Glycerin soap. Yeah, yeah.
That's good stuff.
But
Just for.
yeah.
Yeah.
China. Traveling through Asia was actually quite difficult. When I crossed over into China, okay, before I left South Africa, I went through all the vaccines and that were required: rabies, hepatitis, yellow fever. Those are the ones you need. There's some recommended. I didn't go for those. But I get to China from Pakistan, and they want proof of yellow fever, and I couldn't find the certificate.
Oh, no.
And I'm looking through my bags, my papers and that, and I come across an A4 size paper that's yellow with writing on it, signature at the bottom, etc. And I reckon that these guys can't speak English. What are the chances that they can read? So I gave them the piece of paper, and I said, here's my yellow fever certificate. They handed it around to everybody, and eventually the guy came back and he said, okay, it's fine.
It's yellow.
It was a yellow pen.
It looked official.
It was his laundry list. Let her home.
But that wasn't all. China, it was, how they let me into China, I have no idea, because they check everything. They check your every file on your computer and all that sort of stuff. And the guy says to me, he says, have you got any videos? So I said no, because I genuinely believed that he wanted pornographic stuff. Okay, and I said no. So we're going through the files on my tablet and that, and I have a folder there saying videos. And he says, what's that? I said, videos. He said, but I thought I asked you if you had videos. I said, yes, I've got videos, but I explained to him, I said, these are some of my journey. And we went through randomly selected stuff, and he let me go. He let it go. He said, that's fine.
Yeah, they're not movies.
Yeah. And I gave him my passport, and my passport had me with shaved hair. And in fact, I think the one that I actually didn't have a beard. So with shaved hair, no beard, and here I am presenting to them, I have hair and a beard, and they look at my passport and they say, this is not you. So he says, do you have any other ID? Or do you have another passport? I said, well, I've got an ID, another ID. I gave him the ID, and the ID photo was 15 years older than my passport photo. So there's no ways of appeasing these guys. And so I'm looking through papers to try and find something to prove it. And I come across, there's my second passport, and he sees it. And he says to me, I thought you didn't have another passport. So I said to him, I said, well, I understood you to say, have you got another country's passport? And I gave him the second passport, and the photo is literally exactly the same. It was 2-3 years difference. And after all this with the passport, the yellow fever, and the videos and all that, I was surprised that they actually allowed me in. Yeah.
So where do you hold all your important papers for this stuff?
All over the place.
Okay, so they're just everywhere
Yeah.
stashed away depending on when you need it. Okay,
Yes.
but you carry those
I
because
carry
of that.
I carry
You
those.
don't have all your eggs in one basket.
Okay.
No.
So your second passport is there just in case? I mean, that's an expired one, I assume, your
No, it's
second.
not expired.
How do
Oh,
you,
It's not expired.
oh,
Fake
In
losing
fact, one stage I had 3 passports.
Oh.
I didn't know you could have.
I had one before I started traveling, and when I started traveling or planning this, I realized I was going to go through a lot of countries. So I went to our internal affairs place, and I said to them, look, I'm going to travel, I want a thick passport. Okay, so I applied for it, paid for it, and when I got it, I said to them, what do I do with this one I've got? They said, well, keep it. You can use it.
Oh.
So when that one was about to expire, because I was in South America, I went to the embassy in Buenos Aires. It still had a year to go. And I said, look, this is going to expire. By the time it expires, you need 6 months before it expires to apply for a new one. I said, by that time, I'm going to be nowhere near an embassy, so let me apply for it now. We had a bit of an argument about it, but they accepted my application, and it was about 10 months later, I actually got my passport. So I got that passport before the first one expired. So at one stage I had 3.
So
How do you get, how do you get things like documents like that months later when you're in another part of the world?
Well, that passport was sent to Buenos Aires. They contacted me by email, and they said, right, I said to them, right, can you send it to wherever I was? They said, okay, go to this courier company, pay for it, and send us the proof, and then they would send it. Yeah,
So there are ways of getting,
there are ways of getting it.
when you're traveling, I was wondering about that, when you travel so much and you're nowhere in the same place, not having a physical address for things that are important like this, so
Yeah.
you have ways.
Yeah.
So is banking the same way? Like you have one bank and an ATM card and that's how you get cash in other countries? Or how does
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
financially, how does that work?
Well, I use my credit card,
Right,
or I use my debit card to get it.
right. And then just use online banking like the rest of us?
Yes.
Just to pay bills or
Well, fortunately, the only bills I've got to pay are the credit card.
credit card?
Yeah.
Yeah. God, that's cool.
I know, that doesn't feel
So-
good.
Yeah, how weird.
I would love.
So my dad wants to know, he's been watching, him and his wife Sheila, and he wants to know, have you ever had to deal with a hailstorm? Like, where it's like you don't have anywhere to hide, you know?
I've actually been lucky. I've been caught in quite a few storms. I was caught in that one in Iran that I've told you about. But when I've been caught in a storm, there's been something to shelter nearby. I was crossing the Rockies the day after that incident in Glacier National Park, and going up Highway 20 or whatever it is, Highway 2, Highway 20. I was caught in a rainstorm, and I think it might have hailed. But there was a motel, I think it had been mothballed. It was still in very good condition. There were chairs outside. It was pretty clean outside on the porch. Okay, I've been told not to use veranda because that's a southern thing or something.
Porch is up north here.
And I went and I sheltered there. And I actually took one of the chairs and I sat in it and I fell asleep because the night before I'd had literally 2 hours sleep and traveling over the mountains
Back and forth.
twice,
Oh, yeah,
and that
with the jerk.
I was quite tired.
Deal with the jerk.
And I fell asleep and I woke up, something woke me up. That's just part of that thing. And literally from where I was to you,
It was a bear.
there was a fox.
Oh, fox. Aw.
It had obviously come up on the porch and it was probably looking for food. It was
Is that the fox in the picture?
it was probably quite tame because residents had fed it, but there was nobody there.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that the one in the phone you showed me?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a picture on
Aw.
his phone. I showed you.
Yeah.
Big fox. He's a nice big fox. That's all.
Now how about communication? Do you use like Google Translate or something like that when you
Yes.
go to a country?
Yes, yes.
Right.
When I go to a country, one of the first things I try and learn, I'm not good at languages, most definitely not, but I try and learn is hello, thank you, and I don't understand.
That's a good start.
Yeah, and possibly goodbye, but you know.
Bathroom.
No, I was gonna say, where's the bathroom?
Tell
Yes,
the
del
bad news
baño.
of their story.
But yeah, those are the three things. Traveling through Asia, Google Translate, or any translation program was a great help, an absolute great help. And I don't know what I would have done without it. And to be quite honest, we live in the best time of this to travel. I can have books, I can have maps, I can have translate programs, I can have whatever you want, basically, on this. I don't know why people still use paper maps, but yeah, it's the best time to actually travel.
Toiletta.
I like paper.
I like
And
paper
so
maps.
you mentioned it, the SIM card thing, and I've only dealt with that one time when I went to Africa. They basically said, take out your SIM card, put in a SIM card. So is that a thing? Like when you go to a new country, you stop by and get a new SIM card, and that's the best way to get affordable cell coverage?
Yes, it actually depends on what you want, because a lot of countries, they have Wi-Fi. you can get Wi-Fi in a lot of places. You know, here you can go to McDonald's, you can go to Burger King, you can go to Wendy's, or most Wendy's, you can go Tacos and Bell, and you can get Wi-Fi. And a lot of towns and cities have free Wi-Fi. So you don't really need a SIM card.
Right.
In other places, free Wi-Fi is, well, maybe it is accessible and available, but the communication things make it quite difficult to get. And let me tell you something, virtually every single country I've been to, there's been an issue with mobile communications. China was quite interesting because a gig of data cost 64 yuan, which at the time approximately 16 US dollars, which is quite cheap compared to here. So I went to a place, got a SIM card, gave them 100 yuan note, and I was waiting for my change, and it didn't come. And eventually I found out that they took the whole 100 yuan and loaded it onto the SIM card. Okay, and I didn't want that because I wasn't going to be in the country for too long.
That long.
Yeah, I eventually got my money back, but the change back. But it was a battle, and there are things like that. You know, there's certain packages that are far more cost effective, but they don't tell you about that, which is pretty much standard. But virtually every single country I've been to, even here, I've had issues.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, I figured you had like a little kit like I've got, like where you got like, here's all my SIM cards from all the different countries. And you just put
No,
one
I
in
don't.
whenever you...
I don't have that.
Oh.
When
No.
I'm finished, I throw it away.
Oh, wow. Just get a new one. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
Because you can't, not as far as I know, you can't take a SIM card from one country to another.
Mhm.
You know, and to me it's strange because you have the same operators. Okay, they might be called under a different name, but it's the same operators virtually throughout the world.
Right.
And you can't use one operator's SIM card in another country, even though it's the same operator.
Right. I know in Africa my phone worked, but it was like super expensive. And if you bought the SIM card locally, it was cheaper. So it wasn't necessarily I had to have it, it was just the more affordable way to have internet.
Yeah.
Have you had very many bad experiences with legal authorities in some of these other countries you've been to? Somebody giving you a hard time, you know, being a foreigner, about trying to extort or take money away, or make you pay a special fee for things?
If you had to bribe people,
Okay, listen.
Oh,
let's go
yeah.
with that. How many times have you bribed people to leave you alone?
I probably have had to bribe people as few as possible. I don't like that.
I know there's one guy, you just told him to F off and he left, so that was.
But what was your first question before the bribery? Did I have to have?
No, it's the same question. She
Did I
just put it in dip better.
Yeah, he just made it long and drawn out.
Okay.
I was trying to keep it on the line and figure politically correct. Haley hit the point.
Quite a few countries in Asia are caught buses, especially in China and that. I go to the ticket office and I say, I want a ticket, I've got a bicycle, how much? And they give me a price for the ticket. The bike was free. I get to the bus and the conductor won't allow me take the bike on until I paid.
Him.
Yeah.
I paid him. The one time in Malaysia, they wanted 100 ringgit. I think that's a Malaysian country. Eventually, my friend and I, we managed to bring it down to 20. Yeah,
Good job.
Shake that.
yeah. But and I'm sure if we'd insisted, I would have got it for nothing. But yeah.
So Andrea is asking, have you ever thought about writing a book?
I have. but I'm lazy. It'll never happen.
You and me both.
I'll be quite honest.
That's so funny,
I prefer doing the things than sitting down writing a book.
Right.
Pakistan was quite difficult. One of the things I wanted to do, there were 3 things I wanted to do when I first set out. One was go to Iran. The second one was to ride the Karakoram Highway. And the third one was to go to New Zealand. As soon as I got onto the Karakoram Highway, I was harassed by the police. They ripped me out of the hotel I was. They took me up to the city where Osama bin Laden had his compound, and they wanted me to stay there. They said it's for my protection. Now, why would a foreigner be safe in a city where the US has killed one of the heroes? Is it gonna? It didn't quite make sense. But at any rate, I carried on. They escorted me along the place. They often put me into a truck to take me, and eventually I was going too slow for them because it's all mountainous places. But it's one of the most beautiful places I've been to. So they put me into this truck. It was an open back truck, and there I am, a foreigner in this country. I must have stuck out, like a big lump of coal on a snowfield. But they kept telling me it's for my protection, and I just didn't believe this. But I had some good experiences there. The guys that escorted me, they stopped and they showed me a point on the Karakoram Highway where the 3 highest mountain ranges in the world come to meet. They are divided by 2 rivers, and the actual 2 rivers, I think, eventually join together. But there's the Himalayas, the Karakoram, and I forget the third mountain range. But the 10 of the highest peaks in the world are on those 3 mountain ranges.
Wow.
And you can stand here and look maybe 3 miles away and see the place where the 3 mountain ranges come.
So did they stay with you the whole time you were in the country?
No.
Okay.
No. Shortly after that, I was riding along just south of a town called Sost. It's Islamabad. It's up somewhere up top here. A town called Sost.
That is really crazy terrain.
Wow, that is.
Yeah,
There's
You look at it,
Gilgit.
man.
Just before Gilgit. This is the Karakoram Highway somewhere here.
wow.
But roundabout here,
I know, I'm like, no one's everywhere.
roundabout here, suddenly I realized that this escort had gone. They just vanished. And
Just
it
all
was,
of a sudden.
all of a sudden, they never
shit.
told me anything, and it was such an eerie feeling. Where these guys gone? Are they going to bounce
back?
out of the bushes somewhere,
Oh,
or
creepy.
the mountain, or somewhere?
That's my next question.
But
Insane.
after going to Gilgit, I went up, and then I went through Asia and Australia and New Zealand, and I stayed with a guy who was involved with the New Zealand military. They did certain software surveillance programs and stuff like this, and I told him the story, and I said to him, something just did not make sense, because they said it's for my safety, but yet I was stuck, sticking out like a sore thumb kind of thing, and it just didn't make sense. And he said, you're probably right. And he said, when Osama bin Laden was shot, the US had to identify him. Otherwise they'd get people substituting for him. I forget the word, what it's called. And they had to positively identify him, but the Pakistanis wouldn't assist. So they sent some people in under cover of one of these aid organizations, the Lions or one of those, I forget what it was, I don't want to say which one, whatever. And they actually went to the school where Osama bin Laden's kids are, and they managed to get samples that they could use for DNA and positively identify them.
Wow.
And when the Pakistanis heard about that, they were furious, because they looked to be traitors to the rest of the region. And he said, it's possibly that you arrived there, excuse me, this stranger unannounced and going through this area, and
Wrong place,
They were
wrong time.
suspicious.
Yeah,
they became suspicious.
so you were a little lucky then, having that escort.
When you were here, how far into your trip? Was this like 6 months into your trip, or what point was this?
In your journey.
2 years?
This was April 2015, so it was about a year
A year?
into my trip, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but further on, Gilgit, up top here,
Mm-hmm.
I stayed somewhere here. I must have gone on this route, but I stayed at a town in a hotel, and the guy rattled off about 4 or 5 peaks that were all sort of 7,000 meters, 23,000 feet above sea level. And you're standing there, and there are these peaks all over the place. It is just absolutely stunning. And
So even if this would have been at the beginning of your trip, it wouldn't have turned you off to continue because you had good experiences during this part? I mean,
I was determined.
You were determined,
I was so
okay.
Yeah.
determined. There was nothing going to turn me off. In fact, quite a funny story. They bundled me into a vehicle, and it was a public like a taxi thing, and we were going there, and it was about 7 o'clock at night, and we still had about, here is Sost. I went along there. From Sost to China, you can't ride. You can't. In fact, from China, you can't ride. It's just too desolate. The Chinese won't let you cycle, so you have to catch public transport there. But when I was in a town, I forget it was, I stayed in a hotel, and because we arrived in there at about 6 o'clock, I guess, it was dark, and the driver said to me, look, we'll get you to Sos before 8 o'clock. I said, forget it. You've taken 5 hours to travel this period of time. We still got the same distance. You're going to do it in 2 hours. No. So I got out of the taxi, and there was a hotel there. I went and I booked a room, and I was hungry, so I went to the restaurant. And as I was walking to the restaurant, there were these 4 security people that came past me. But we greeted each other, and I went to the restaurant. I ordered some soup, and then the same 4 guys came and they sat at the table I was sitting at, but they just looked at me.
Oh.
And this was scary, because
yeah.
because of what I had experienced earlier on. And the soup came. I looked at the soup, and I decided I just wasn't hungry anymore.
Oh.
Okay, and I actually said to these guys, you know, what you doing here? But they couldn't talk to me, and I actually went to the waiter and I said to him, I can't eat this food. I just, these guys have just put me off my appetite. I'm not going to eat it. And I decided to go back to my room. And on my way to the room, I said, no, these guys are going to pay. So I went back to the hotel, the concierge, and I said to him, those people are going to pay for the food. They put me off, I'm not paying for it. And I went into the restaurant, and the waiter was just walking through to the kitchen with a bowl of soup, and I called him. I said, whoa, come here. Took the bowl of soup, and I went up the table where those 4 guys were, and I said, well, seeing you guys are paying for it, here, you can have it. And I threw it on the table, and I walked out, and I went to my room. I went and picked up my camera, and I wanted a photograph of them. By that time, their superior had come in, called them to the reception area, and was giving them a lecture. I've actually got a photo of the guy giving them.
Give me the right back.
But at any rate, I went back into my room, and I heard this noise outside. And I go outside, and there's the security guy sitting outside my front door, outside my room door. I said, what are you doing here? He said, well, I'm looking after you. I said, forget it. I said, go down there, you can go into the next building, and you can look from there, and you can watch. And he did. He went. The next morning, I'm busy packing up. I was going to have a break, just to wander around the town, and this huge security guard just walks into my room. I said, what are you doing here? I said, get out. And of course he went out. So I left, I went and going through to look for something to eat in the little village, and this guy's following me. And I thought, okay, fine. He's quite a big guy. I said, you know, he's not fit. So I started walking fast. And there's this guy running after me. Hey, mister. So I just carry on. And then I bought something to eat, and I offered him some, and he didn't want. And then I went into a tea room, and I sat down. He came and he ordered tea, and then I decided I was going to leave. I was going to get a taxi. I don't care how much it cost me to leave. So I went back to the hotel, and there he is. Mister, wait, mister. And I'm walking as fast as I can. And I get to the hotel. I went to the reception. I said, get me a taxi. They said, okay. So I went, got my bags. As I came out, there was the security guys. The guy with the things on his shoulder. He said, where are you going? I said, I'm catching a taxi to Gilbert. He said, no, you're coming with us. And they bundled me into a vehicle, and then they drove me up, and then shortly thereafter, every region I had to change police escorts. And I come to this one point where I had to change. Well, they dropped me off. There was this little tent kind of thing, and there were some guys there. I took my bike off, I had the panniers off, and I said to the guys, I said, can I leave? Can I ride? They said yes. So I put the panniers on, takes me about 10 minutes, and off I'm going. As I'm riding about 500 yards up the road, this vehicle comes on the other direction, and the guy says, where are you going? So I said, I'm carrying on. He said, no, you can't do that. I said, yes, I can. I said, the guys at the point said I can go. He said, no, you've got to go back. I said, I'm not going back. And I carried on riding.
Big wheels.
And 10 minutes later, 15 minutes later, 2 guys on motorbikes came. And they're the guys who showed me the point where the 3 mountain ranges were. Now, when I was in Kuala Lumpur, I stayed at a hostel that was run by Pakistanis. And I told them the story, and I showed them a photo of the security guys. And the guy said, oh my gosh, he said, those are the elite security. He says, you're lucky you're here.
You throw a soup in their face and take it.
Jeez.
Wow. So Andrea says she has one more question.
Only one?
Only one. Yeah. Our biggest fan. Yeah. One more question. How much grit do you have to enjoy the journey?
How
Oh,
much
good
grit?
question, yes.
That's a
Um,
good finish.
Oompa, or what's some of the word for
Moxie,
chutzpah?
Moxie?
Moxie,
Can I-
yeah.
Okay,
To enjoy the journey, how much grit
me-
do you have to have?
Let me put it another way. How big a kahunas you need?
Yes.
Yes.
So
Yeah, there you
that's
go.
exactly what I was thinking the
That's
whole
it.
time, is you have
Yeah.
conquered some things that people would just back off and be like,
I'm done.
I'm done.
going-
Yeah,
But you
I'm
have,
going to the
you, I
embassy.
mean, you
For good.
threw
Yeah.
soup in these guys' face. You've done things that,
Just wait a minute.
and you're just like, no.
Shot.
You just said, no, I'm not gonna do it. And people just said, okay. I mean, that's amazing to me that you just said
And
no.
you're still going and
And
you
you're still
got
going.
years
And that's
ahead of you.
amazing. Yeah, what
And you
kind
still want to.
Look,
of what
let me,
Andrea said.
let me say, after I've said these things, I've thought to myself, am I going to see the next day of light?
Yeah, absolutely.
There are times when I've backed off, especially here in the US with the police. They've said something and I said, well, okay, you want me to do this, I'll do it. And the other times where I've just reacted spontaneously and I thought, well, that's me, gone, finished.
Yeah.
That's generally not me. But yes, you just react in certain circumstances, and I've been lucky. I have to say that. It's not something that is planned. I was in China. I'd had this hard day, and I was looking for a place to stay. There are quite a lot of countries where the hotels need permission from the government for foreigners to stay, and China's one of them. And I went to a few places and I couldn't get accommodation, and two guys saw me and they said, look, can we help you? And I said, yes, I'm looking for a place. They said, come, we'll find a place. So they took me to 3 or 4 hotels, and eventually there was one hotel where I could stay. It was up like on the 7th floor, so I took my bike and my bags up in the lift, and I get into my room, and I'm not sure if I'd unpacked stuff, and I'm not sure if I'd had a shower yet or not, but if I hadn't had one, I was about to have one, and there's a knock on the door. And I open the door, and there's this guy with a woman behind him, and he says, can I come in? I said, yeah. He said, police. He showed me his badge, and he looked around, and he said to me, you can't stay here. So I said, why? He said, no, you've got to come with me. And I said to him, I'm not going anywhere. I said, I've cycled the whole day, I'm tired, I've unpacked everything, and I'm not moving. And he looked at me and he said, okay, and turned around and he walked away. And the woman followed him. And I thought, okay, now he's going to collect support. And 15 minutes later, there's a knock on the door, and I'm thinking, okay, here we go. Must I pack my stuff already, or climb out the window, or do something? And I open the door, and there's the woman who was with him, with her son, 10-year-old son. And they come in, and they have a big bowl of fruit. And they say to me, you must be tired, you must be hungry. I'm the manager's wife, or the owner's wife. Here's a bowl of food for you. And I never heard from the police again. I never heard from them.
Huh.
So sometimes just putting your foot down is enough to stop things happening. Yeah, I was in what's that place called, Myanmar, where they're having all the trouble. This was 6 weeks before the elections in, I don't know, 2016 or somewhere. And Myanmar, you cannot stay. You can only stay in certain approved hotels, and most of them are either government owned or joint ventures with private and government. And I was somewhere up here on the coast. It's apparently a good holiday place, etc., etc. And I couldn't find accommodation because the accommodation is very selective. It has to be approved by the government. There's lots of accommodation, but you just can't stay there. And it's extremely expensive. extremely expensive. And I couldn't find accommodation, so I was told that further up the coast somewhere, there's a town that has a couple of hotels. So it took me 2 days to get there. You can't wild camp. You can't stay at temples. You just cannot stay anywhere. But I was going up this road, and I saw this little building. It had a little cement slab. There was a door on there. I think I knocked on it, and there was nobody. So I just lay out my sleeping bag, climbed into it, and I fell asleep. And at about 11 o'clock, I felt somebody trying to get out of this door. And to my horror, it was police. They have a roadblock there to check vehicles that are going up and down with stuff. They apologized for waking me up. They even came and put my blanket on top of me when I lay down. Okay. And when they had to get back in after they'd finished, they had to wake me up, and they apologized again. And then I carried on, and I got to this town, and every hotel that I went to, there were 2 or 3, they were full. But they weren't full because there was nobody in the car park. So I'd been told that I must go to the police station and they'll find a place. So I go to the police station. I go to the police station, and there's a guy, a major or somebody. He had a lot of brass on his shoulders. He could speak English. He said to me, "What do you want?" I said, "Look, I'm looking for accommodation." He said, "Well, there are 2 hotels here." I said, "They're full." I said, "You've got to find me a place to go, to sleep." He said, "Well, then you've got to go to the town that took me two days to get to him." I said to him, "You are absolutely crazy." And I swore to him. And I said, "You know what you can do? You can stick your country where the sun doesn't shine." And I didn't say it as politely as that. And his eyes just went, and he couldn't speak. You know, when the person is so cross and he's stammering, ta 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 ta. And he couldn't speak. And eventually I left, and I went to the bus. I caught a bus back to Yangon, and then from Yangon I cycled out through here, and I went. But I really thought I was going to be locked up, because he was so cross he could not utter a single word.
They probably had a bed for you in a cell.
Yeah.
And
they might have fed you.
And having told me that he doesn't have anything, what he was in a bit of a catch-22.
Yeah.
So
But then-
go ahead.
But then I stayed in Yangon, and then I went out here, and somewhere here I came upon a gas station, and I went in there and I said to the guy, I said, "Look, I'm looking for a place to sleep." I said, "You know, can you help me?" He said, "Yeah, come." And he took me round the back, and there were two rooms that they were busy building, literally almost finished. The bed and the kitchen and all sorts of things. He said, "Yeah, you can sleep for the night for free."
Aw.
So they're wonderful people in
Yeah.
Myanmar, but they are just petrified of the government.
Huh.
Look, that was, as I say, about 6 weeks before the elections. But yeah, and what's happening now, I don't think things have changed.
What a shame.
It's a pity.
So I got one. There's a podcast I listen to, and one of their last questions is always like, if you ran into a young person, let's say somebody getting ready to graduate high school, like what would be your recommendation to live life so that you're happy and fulfilled?
Okay.
So what would you tell a young person these days?
Basically, what I said earlier on today. If it is to be, it is up to me. Don't expect anybody else to do things for you. If you want something done, go and do it. If you don't ask, the answer is no. So if you want something, go and ask for it. If you don't ask for it, you're not going to get it. Just go and do it. Okay. 101 people are going to try and talk you out of it. Whatever you want to do, you're going to find lots of people trying to talk you out of it. They mean well, but often their advice is misplaced. You know what you can do. I knew when I left, I knew I was going to do this trip. I knew I could do it. I had no doubt about it. 2 days ago, I sent a text message to my sister. I said, can you believe it's 7 years since I left your place? She said, I remember it like it was yesterday. She said, I expected you back in 3 months. Wow. Okay. But I knew deep down that I was going to do it, and I knew I could do it. And I've always said there are 3 things that are going to stop me. 1 is I run out of road, which will never happen. 2 is I run out of money, which is a possibility. And 3 is if my health fails, if I get injured. But besides that, I knew I was going to be able to do it.
You'll go till 3 happens, and then you'll use some of 2 to make you continue on so you don't end up with number 1.
I actually hope I end up with number 1. Yeah. I really do, because there's just so much to see in this world. I have seen, traveling through the US, I have probably seen more than 50% of the people in the US. In fact, in most countries, I've seen more than, I don't know the percentage, but a great percentage of the people. But I have just seen a minute fraction of what there is to see.
Yeah. Looks like in the United States, you've been very coastal, even all through the Florida and the East Coast and up around the northern half and all through the California coast.
I've actually been around the perimeter of
Yeah,
the US.
the perimeter.
Gosh, the middle.
Yeah, that whole
side,
flat much in the
there's a
middle.
lot in the middle.
There's a
There's
huge
a lot
amount.
to see out there.
There's a
Yeah.
huge amount. And you know,
Yeah.
somebody asked me the question about, my favorite places and stuff that I've been to, and how does the US. The US is certainly one of the best countries I've been to. I don't care what you guys say about your politics and all that. Okay, yes, it's nothing compared to
That's true.
the most of the countries.
Yeah, for the stories
That's
you've been
true.
sharing tonight.
You've still got choices. You've still got a lot of things. The country's clean. It provides you with what you want. It's so diverse. It's an amazing country. So yeah.
I'm surprised you haven't hit like Colorado and all of that area.
That's next year.
That's next year,
It's
or maybe this year, right? You're
No,
going
that was-
over and back down.
Chip,
Well,
that-
who
Chip,
knows?
that's lap number 2.
Lab number 2.
Lab number
Yeah, lab
2.
number 2.
Yeah, you could do like an interior lab.
Lap
Yeah.
number 2.
Sorry, what?
That's
could do
lap
it.
Lap
number
number
2.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, look,
Yeah,
there's lap 2, lap 3. I don't know, but yes.
You can see my dots where I'm like, these are my places.
I love your.
Oh, I saw your little
stars
hearts. I'm
everywhere.
like, why are there hearts on there?
There's stars everywhere.
Yeah, this is my favorite area. Andrea grew up in Colorado and then Utah.
Wow.
This area in Utah is just amazing.
Yeah.
The stuff there, Moab, and
Oh, yeah.
it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, look, I've got all this southern tier to go through. Still up to Maine and across a whole lot there, and then all of this in the middle.
Yeah.
It's just huge. Well, one of the things that I want to go and do is Route 66. I went to the start of it in Chicago.
Yeah, you
But-
made the original highway cross there before they made interstates.
Yeah. So that's still.
And you've done a lot of 17, so you've gotten the coastal highway, similar style.
I did Highway 1, 101 on the
Yeah,
west
and then you've
coast.
done 101, the
And I've done
PCH
Highway
highway.
2, Highway 20 on the northern.
There's so many people to
big
stop
highways.
in and they'll help, and so many people along the way.
So did you do Vietnam?
No, and there's a reason why I didn't do Vietnam, is because all the other countries were charging $30 for a visa. Vietnam wanted $80 or $90. And I decided to boycott them for that reason. Interesting enough, while I was still in Southeast Asia, down at the bottom, they changed their policy to $30.
No, it's
Oh,
too
wow.
far away.
Yeah.
Can't just pop back
Because
up
of
there
you.
on a bike.
Yeah. Look, that's also, there are a lot of places. I've just found out there's the longest road from Cape Town to some place in the northeastern part of Russia. It's 23,000 kilometers long, and you don't have to catch a ferry or anything. It's all roads and bridges and that, and you can go
Oh,
Who'd have
contiguous,
thought it?
so it's a
somewhere-
contiguous
from
road.
somewhere through here, up there, right,
Jeez.
Syria,
Oh my
right,
gosh.
all the way.
One
Wow.
contiguous
There's not
road.
an easy
Wow.
way to get through that mess right there.
I was like, so
Yeah,
every
that's gonna be
country,
rough.
you have to pay
Hot
$30.
desert, dangerous.
There's no combination
Wartime,
visas.
There's a lot going
No,
on over there.
no.
in
Ugh,
No.
Sudan
I'm
and
Well,
really cheap.
some of the countries, the visa was free.
oh, okay.
Okay, but the ones that charged was $30 in Southeast Asia here.
Okay.
Laos, Thailand. No, Thailand was free for 15 days. Cambodia, Malaysia, I think, was free for 90 days. Singapore was free as well.
So if you got to the border of Thailand and were leaving and you had went 17 days, what happens if you were 2 days over?
I'm not sure.
You
When
just
I
always
was-
stayed in your parameters?
When I was in Indonesia, I went to Bali,
Mm-hmm.
and I flew from Bali to Perth. I had a 60-day visa, and I think I arrived there halfway through the first day, and I left. The plane was leaving at about 1:30 in the morning, and I went through customs at about 12:10, and they counted that as a day.
The
And-
10 minutes?
Yeah,
Oh.
and they charged me. They fined me for that, and it was quite funny. I went. They pulled me aside and said, "You've got to pay a fine." So I went into an office, and there were a few people there, and I paid the money. And I said to the guy, I said, "I want a receipt." "Oh yes, okay." And he went and he printed out a receipt. So he was just going to put that in his pocket, write it off.
Right, because it was 10 minutes.
Yeah. And after he'd given me I paid, and he stamped my passport. He said to me, how did you enjoy our country?
Go, you answer that.
And I said to him, I didn't. He said, why? I said, because of bastards like you trying to rip me off. And I turned around and I walked out. I'd already had my stamp.
Yeah, he wasn't holding it back.
But yeah, that's probably one of the bribes that I've paid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those little bribes, it's a little, just to make life a little happier and just
Yeah.
get out of there.
Less stressful.
Do you recommend carrying a little extra for those kind of things once in a while? Or budget it in for the trips?
Budget bribes.
I would,
Yeah, budget bribes.
I would recommend not having to do that, but yes, you possibly can. I will sit there for 10 hours and wait.
Wait a while.
It's against my philosophy and policy and that to pay these guys this stuff.
So would you say that's the true grit to enjoy?
That's probably good.
Enjoy your time through.
Yeah, willing to endure half a day
Yeah, enjoy the
of just sitting
happiness.
in some room or something until they
I
finally
was
do it.
I was in Paraguay, and
Oh, sorry.
my sleeping mat failed. The laminations or whatever
Oh, ripped apart.
came out, and there was a big hump in it and that. And I also wanted a new tent. A friend, somebody was going to join me, and I bought a 3-man tent, and things didn't work, so it was cumbersome. A 2-man tent I could sneak in certain places which I couldn't do with the 3-man tent. So I got hold of the guy in Australia who I bought the sleeping mat from, and he sent me the sleeping mat and the new tent, and the sleeping mat was under warranty. The new tent I paid for, but he gave me an invoice for $0. And the mistake I made when I paid for the courier stuff because of the tent, and I got a friend to send it to me, and she opened up the tent and sort of repacked it so it looked like it was used. And I get to Asuncion, the thing is there, and they wanted me to pay the price of, I put for insurance purposes on the courier thing, I put there that the cost of it was $800, 800 Australian dollars. Okay, because thinking about it afterwards, it was a mistake I made because it's courier, you sign for it, etc., etc. I shouldn't have to insure it. Okay, they saw this thing and they said, right, you're going to have to pay import duties of 500 US.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And I
Oh
said,
my
forget
goodness.
it. I said, forget it. We started negotiating. I said, I want an invoice, and they just pulled up an invoice. It was totally the wrong description of goods, etc., etc. It was somebody who had imported stuff. And I said, okay, I'm going to pay by credit card. No, you can only pay by cash.
Yeah.
So I said, forget it. I'm not paying a single cent. I stayed in the guy's office for 2 days. There was the Friday, and I went back on the Monday, and I sat there, and I sat there, and he told me the story that he had, 5 wives, and he had 11 children, and all
7
this sort of
children.
stuff.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. And I just sat there, and eventually they gave up. They gave me the stuff for nothing.
Wow.
And they said to me, oh, the guy who's made the decision was somebody else. And I said,
blame it
okay,
on
I want
somebody
to go and thank him for this. And I took a selfie of him and me together, and I posted it on my Facebook page, and I said, here's the biggest crook that I've met.
On your whole
Yeah.
adventure.
Speaking of Facebook, real quick before we close it out, I gotta imagine, because, did you bring your camera with you by chance?
Yeah.
So show everyone the camera. Out there, you don't just have a phone, you have these photographs. I've seen your Facebook page, and there are some amazing, you're in some amazing places, has some incredible pictures from animals and earth and whatnot. So how do you maintain keeping good equipment in sometimes severe conditions?
This is actually my second camera. I bought one when my sister came over, 2018, I think it was, in Argentina. A couple of months ago, I found that there was something loose. It was just a module. I think it's a module in the prism, and the camera still works. But it gave me a fright because the camera was expensive. Okay. When I was in California, all right, I got the camera and I had Pentax. Yeah, I'm going to advertise. Pentax is the only brand that you can use the lenses from way back when. As long as it's the same mount, the lenses are compatible. And I had an old Pentax 35mm camera, and I got the lenses sent over to me. But they were the cheap lenses that you get with the camera. They're made out of plastic, and with all the vibrations and that going over the roads of the Andes, etc., the lenses broke. So when I was in California, I wanted to buy a new lens. I priced them in Mexico and other places, but they were prohibitively expensive. And I knew I could get lenses in the US, but I didn't bargain for COVID, and everything was closed. And I stayed with the guy in a town, a city, and I said to him, look, I'm looking for a lens for my camera. And he said, what camera have you got? I said, I have a Pentax. And he said, I got a Pentax. I said, no way. He said, yeah. He said, I'm not using it. If you want the camera and the lens, you can take it. So I looked at the camera, and it wasn't as good as my camera. So I said, look, I'll gladly take the lens, but I won't take the camera. And when my camera developed this problem, I wrote to him, and I said to him, Q, can I buy that camera of yours? He said, no. He said, you can't buy it. He said, I'll give it to you. Yeah. So that's why I've got this camera. And it's a bloody nice camera.
Oh yeah, I saw that today when you took some pictures.
It may be 15 years old.
But right now, that all those miles, this thing.
Whoa, you're using 35 millimeter?
No, it's
digital.
It's digital.
Okay.
Okay, this
15
is
years. Like Pac-Man pixelated.
Yeah.
But this lens I bought here. I wanted this lens. This is not the lens he gave me, but this camera is just, it's fabulous.
The bad thing bounces around, all goes down thousands of miles, but then if you go to the Facebook page, scroll backwards and let's look at some of the places you've stayed. He'll sit for a half hour out in some nature and just get some pictures that are ungodly amazing.
Yeah.
Finally, nature he's quiet enough and they come right to him and he gets some great pictures.
I've got some foam that I put this on. I was told to get soft foam. This is quite soft, so there's a bit of padding. And I just hope this camera lasts. It's a solid camera, so I hope it does. Yeah.
And you're able to USB charge that while you're riding?
No,
Yeah. That was a big
Fun thickness.
like my other camera, no, that's not it. It doesn't have a USB charge thing. You've got to
Get that certain camera.
plug it into,
Like 120 or
yeah,
Oh, that's
Yeah.
nice.
wall socket.
you have a separate charger for it, which is a pity.
Yeah.
I would
My
have,
Nikon's like
I'd
that.
have preferred to have USB, yeah.
But 15 years, that's because of the age, that was probably why.
Well, even my latest camera that I've got, you can't charge
Really?
with
Huh.
USB.
Because then we'll be able to do that, with the,
Get the good side.
You missed it. Oh, you missed it. She gave you sweet shots.
He needs to ask Vlad how well I like my picture taken.
I do that a lot. Yeah.
All right, we're coming up on 3 hours. Anybody
Yeah.
have any last questions, or are you gonna let him go?
It really has been.
probably-
Wow,
Ride
thank
tomorrow.
you.
We get to sleep in, he's gotta go
He's
to
gotta
work.
go.
Yeah, we just worked on his,
Oh, yeah, we get to
run
sleep
to
in.
DC. He's gonna go up to go up to, Yorktown, right? He's gonna ride across the ridge and then kind of take the middle neck and northern neck route, and on this side of the Potomac, that way, stay away from DC and Richmond, and eventually work his way up, and then come right across the Woodrow Wilson Bridge into Alexandria, where Blair area, and then come up right around the Mount Vernon Trail, right up across, and then right to Mount, he's gonna be right at the Washington Memorial,
Oh,
and
that'll
that's
be
where all the
nice.
embassies are. So he's gotta go to the, what all the embassies, you're going to the South African embassy, the Ireland embassy, what
It's
else?
South Africa, Ireland, Spanish, Portuguese, maybe Moroccan.
So you're hitting all the
But-
embassies, and they're all like in a couple blocks, so
Yeah.
it's perfect for
Oh,
him.
that is good. You picked up.
When I was traveling through Baja California, I was cutting across from the coast, the east coast of going across to the west coast. I came across two brothers, and they were coming the other way, and we took photographs of each other. I put the camera on 10-second timer and that. And I had to go over up two hills, and at the top of the hill I took a rest in some trees, and I'm sitting there. I had the bike facing the road, the trees were here, and I think I was having a sandwich or something, and a car drove past, and the guy waved, so I waved. Drawbridge.
Yeah.
And then the vehicle does a U-turn, goes down the little embankment and comes and parks next to me facing into the trees. And he says to me, are you okay? You have water? I said, yes. He said, where are you going? I said, Tijuana. He said, then he said to me, do you want water? I said, no. He said, do you want a lift? I said, no. He said, I want money. I said, no. And he went like this. And I had my camera in because my mobile on with me in my hands because he asked me some question that I needed the map to, might have been where I was going, Tijuana or something. And he went like this to me, and then he started fiddling around between his car seats, and I saw a pipe. I don't know what the pipe was, but I wasn't going to take a chance. I took a photograph of him, and he started shouting, no, 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 no. And I told him what he could do, and I grabbed my bike. I grabbed my bike and I ran. And as I got onto the top of the road, I relaxed. Because I don't know what he was getting, either a pipe or a gun or whatever. But I was so lucky that I took him by surprise by taking a photograph. The photograph, by the way, never came out because I still had it on the 10-second time.
Right, so it didn't click anyways. He didn't know that.
No, he didn't know that.
He didn't know that.
He didn't know that. In fact, I didn't either. Because I stopped the cops and I wanted to show them the photograph, and it was blank because I put it back in my bar bag, and it took a photograph of the dark bar bag. But
That was your version of the camera.
but it was just total spontaneous. I told you about the bamboo stick. I had that. I had the handbrakes on. I released everything, grabbed everything that I had, and I was gone. I tried to emulate that, and I couldn't. Everything just worked 100%, in fact 200%, and I was gone. Because once I got onto the road, I realized that that was it.
Is that when you lost your bamboo stick?
I was safe. No, I didn't lose it there.
Oh.
No, I grabbed everything. Everything I grabbed. Yeah. It was just amazing. I was traveling down on the Keys when I was in Miami, and that I crossed, and also New Orleans. There are quite a few drawbridges, and I'd been stopped at all these. And when I was traveling down the Keys, I crossed a drawbridge, and it was quite interesting because this thing was down, and I wanted to see sort of how it worked. So I stopped on the drawbridge and I was looking around, and then I see people on the bank of the river, and they're waving at me, and I waved back at them.
South Africa has no drawbridges, you gotta understand this, so he had never understood what a drawbridge was.
Was it going up?
And then I realized that they're actually shouting at me. And then I heard the bells, and I saw the lights flashing.
Get off the bed!
At least you got to see how it works close up.
Yeah. No, no drawbridges, right?
All right.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you so much for spending 3 hours with us, which is
Yeah.
way more than I thought you would have in you. So this has been amazing. And
Fantastic.
I think
Thank you.
everybody online has been enjoying it.
Yeah.
And
Thank you very much, and thank you all for watching. It's been a pleasure. And thank
Well, we look forward to hopefully seeing you and hearing from you on lap number 2.
Yes.
absolutely.
Well, I hope to see you all here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.